Yiping stood motionless, his mind blank. He had thought 9 years of endurance was the end. But fate opened a turn more cruel than a nightmare. Yiping had accepted an ordinary fate, studying hard to change his life, but reality slapped his naive expectations. While powerful cultivators roamed the skies, Yiping stood among the crowd, small and helpless like any mortal. Only then did he realize this world was not ordinary, but ruled by magic and divine power. A slip of words stunned Yiping, for deep down he had never believed in a path of immortal cultivation. The manifested system sneered and told him to treat it as a chance to restart his life, so long as he kept advancing. Under cold stares, Yiping burst into tears, pouring all his hatred and despair onto his cruel fate. A wild thought flashed: if he was a transmigrant, he couldn't be pathetic, his talent must be extraordinary. Without hesitation, he raced straight to the spirit test, hoping to confirm his suspicions. Cold light flashed and the 4 words "no spiritual root" stabbed into Yiping's heart. The harsh truth made him scream madly. This transmigration was nothing like he imagined. Just as Yiping neared the bottom of despair, an old man appeared, offering a faint hope. Like a drowning man clutching a straw, Yiping's eyes lit up as he stared at the man before him. With one choice, Yiping's life turned toward the Azure Cloud Dao sect. Cultivator Taihe, imposing, coldly instructed Zhuang Yu to take on the responsibility. In a blink, the stern sect leader became an old man pleading with his disciple. Su Changji replied indifferently to him. Nothing was worth worrying about. Taihe solemnly explained the survival pressure facing the sect. Leisurely, Zhuang Yu thought the task as easy as turning his hand over. Taihe recounted the hardships of a declining sect amid fierce competition. The ridiculous schemes of other sects left Taihe both angry and helpless. Those shameless tricks made Taihe scornful. Among the desperate, Taihe found Yiping like a life-saving straw. Yiping showed a sincere desire to cultivate, placing practice above all else. Fearing the new disciple would leave, Taihe began to devise a strategy. Taihe set up a delaying plan using lofty pretenses to retain Yiping. To Zhuang Yu, it was a trivial matter not worth concern. Zhuang Yu suddenly changed the subject, catching Taihe off guard. A cold self-mockery slipped from Zhuang Yu's mouth. Spiritual power surged and Zhuang Yu instantly became completely different. Zhuang Yu raised his head in self-satisfaction, believing no one in Qingzhou could match his flair. He laughed boastfully while Taihe silently shook his head, finding the arrogance laughable. Taihe quickly grew serious again, demanding Zhuang Yu must achieve the goal of keeping him. Zhuang Yu suddenly rushed forward, leaving Taihe no time to react. With overflowing confidence, Zhuang Yu affirmed the mission was far too simple. Zhuang Yu quietly shaped Yiping's mindset, forcing him to devote his life to the Azure Cloud Dao sect. Taihe showed satisfaction, seeing it as a good sign for the sect's future. He built a fearsome image, intimidating the new entrant with grandiose words. After the salute, Zhuang Yu took the initiative to leave, arranging to meet at the back mountain. Zhuang Yu bluntly refused his master's help. Zhuang Yu purposely showed he had matured and was no longer a little disciple. Zhuang Yu slowly raised his hand, striking a mysterious pose. Both Taihe and the spirit beast were stunned by the gesture. He spoke in a low voice as if destiny lay in his hands. Zhuang Yu's demeanor made onlookers think he was about to unleash a supreme skill. Taihe couldn't believe it, since this disciple had never shown talent in swordsmanship. Zhuang Yu grew more pleased with himself, convinced he had surpassed his former self. Time passed in silence and nothing happened. The silence bred suspicion and the atmosphere became awkward. He hurriedly covered it up, leaving Taihe to shake his head in helplessness. Night fell and the back mountain sank into cold stillness. Amid the hazy clouds, Zhuang Yu's figure appeared alone. Though shivering, he told himself this was a perfect opening for the plan. Pride made him grit his teeth against the cold. When Yiping appeared, Zhuang Yu quickly assumed the role of an imposing senior. Zhuang Yu carefully adjusted his appearance, treating the meeting as very important. Yiping, tired and annoyed, found cultivators truly inscrutable. A sudden light forced Yiping to drop all his complaints. An imposing figure gradually emerged, exuding an extraordinary aura. Zhuang Yu immediately played the aloof senior, his presence overwhelming his counterpart. To Yiping, the figure seemed surrounded by heaven and earth light, pulling his gaze involuntarily. Zhuang Yu pretended to perform divine arts, spiritual radiance flashing across his hands. The show was grand, but the power didn't match. Meeting a cultivator for the first time, Yiping felt fear and reverence, naively thinking the man might be the sword, immortal of legend. Despite doubts about how smoothly things went, Yiping found no explanation and chose to comfort himself and trust. Zhuang Yu stood among clouds with an exalted air, unconsciously inspiring awe in others. The scene sparked a bold, almost absurd idea in Yiping's mind. Yiping began to suspect the sect's ordinary appearance was a fade. To him, this place seemed like a hidden grand sect quietly accumulating strength. The more he thought, the more excited he became, believing that attaching to a master would change his future. What he witnessed that day gradually reinforced his suspicions. What first seemed dilapidation now appeared deliberately concealed. He couldn't believe a cultivation sect would truly be as decayed as it looked. Though the exterior was shabby, the details were refined, further convincing Yiping. Once he assigned the sect the identity of a hidden power, all doubts in Yiping's mind were resolved. Yiping was fully convinced, his reverence for Zhuangyu bordering on worship. Flattery delighted Zhuangyu, and he already intended to keep Yiping close. Zhuangyu didn't expect Yiping to be so easily led by the nose. He rode the momentum, using the excuse of rewards to keep up the show. As he spoke, he deliberately used tricks to give an air of deep mystery. A faint surge of force was enough to make Yiping feel ceremonially purified. Zhuangyu casually invented a secret technique that sounded tremendously powerful to reassure the junior disciple. In Yiping's eyes, the sect grew more and more unfathomably mysterious. One person was infinitely grateful. The other endured discomfort to maintain the grand persona. Clearly to Zhuangyu, the earlier scene was just a child's trick. Zhuangyu began the next act, trying to appear profound. Yiping confidently believed he was entering the script of a peerless master. A vague question left Yiping's mind blank. Zhuangyu had already prepared the stage for his sermon. The question pressed on Yiping's mind like a heavy stone. Yiping became extremely earnest, fearing a single wrong word would lose a 1,000-year chance. He concentrated all his analysis, convinced the seemingly simple question hid a deep meaning. The more he thought, the more lost he became, while Zhuangyu just wanted him to answer quickly. Time dragged on and Zhuangyu grew cold and annoyed, his patience waning. Pressed to answer, Yiping risked giving his symbolic response. The answer stunned Zhuangyu for a moment. Zhuangyu unconsciously questioned the whole path of swordsmanship he had followed. Compared to that remark, Zhuangyu's achievements suddenly seemed laughably small. Yiping began to fear he had spoken too far. In Zhuangyu's eyes, Yiping became unexpectedly profound. Zhuangyu used gentle words to preserve his image, and Yiping obediently followed. Zhuangyu decided to let actions speak instead of words. With a single sword, the generated momentum was enough to move others. Zhuangyu casually left behind a chance and did not look back. He tossed out a promise, leaving the outcome entirely to Yiping's talent. Yiping fully believed he had entered a true hidden sect. Zhuangyu withdrew quickly, as if another performance awaited. The junior sister's figure appeared under the moonlight. She curiously asked about the result of the earlier trial. Her smile made the atmosphere gentle. A familiar teasing between senior and junior unfolded. A new flashy idea quickly formed in Zhuangyu's mind. Zhuangyu suddenly changed his demeanor, leaving the junior sister puzzled. He repeated the question he had just learned, continuing to build the masterly image. The junior sister was completely drawn into the confusing situation. Zhuangyu lifted the exact answer he'd heard and used it again. One line was enough to make the junior sister immediately convinced. Pleased to be praised, Zhuangyu couldn't hide his joy. Zhuangyu immediately played dumb to avoid it. He prolonged the story with another question. Eventually Zhuangyu flipped the act, and the atmosphere fell into awkward silence. One remark stunned the junior sister, filling her with doubt and disbelief. Time passed and the back mountain sank into absolute quiet. Amid the layered peaks, Yiping lay motionless, small and isolated. Before the seemingly ordinary sword trail, Yiping was bewildered, unsure if he'd missed something or been deceived. Yiping forced himself to stop doubting, convincing himself the senior couldn't be ordinary. He concluded it was all due to his own weakness. Yiping fully believed his conclusion. He kept urging himself to move forward. A vague image suddenly rose in Yiping's consciousness. In the vision, a swordsman stood still with a long sword in hand. The blade was drawn smoothly, without hesitation. Sword forms unfolded continuously at a breakneck speed. Each movement was fluid and agile. Techniques flowed one after another, decisive yet fierce. A bell-like chime shook Yiping's spirit. The swordplay formed in his mind as if he were performing it himself. The sudden insight made the weapon in his hand glow. Yiping trained tirelessly again and again. Lightning, like light, kept appearing with each strike. The unfamiliar moves gradually became familiar to Yiping. The more he practiced, the more skilled he became, changing both mind and body. His repertoire grew far beyond the beginning. The sword technique was pushed to a complete set of 100 moves. The climax of awakening shook his mind violently. Returning to consciousness, Yiping was stunned by what he'd experienced. He suddenly realized the source of all the changes was that senior. A seemingly simple chance unlocked astonishing potential. After years of bad luck, Yiping finally saw his fate turn. He forced himself to stay calm, believing the sword path was still long ahead. 7 days passed as the scenery around the senior's residence lay in vast mist. On the table, Zhuangyu's showy treasure box glittered gold, extremely ostentatious. Zhuangyu casually picked an item and straightened his clothes before leaving. A corner of Zhuangyu's mouth curved up, his mood very pleased. He set off eagerly, leaving behind only a single imposing figure. Crossing the bridge nearly exhausted Zhuangyu's strength. He trudged on, blaming himself and wishing he'd chosen an easier path earlier. Thinking of being underestimated in swordsmanship made him angrier the more he thought. At that moment, Zhuangyu decisively admitted he had never truly understood sword intent. The junior sister's blunt teasing left Zhuang Yu half amused, half exasperated. Zhuang Yu immediately reacted, stressing that the sword way is no joke. He began to boast about the extraordinary origin of the Four Thunder Sword. The Four Thunder Sword is a technique tied to the four seasons, with immense power. This sword art has a clear cultivation progression that becomes more terrifying over time. Zhuang Yu could not hide his pride while speaking of his achievements. The junior sister's dismissive attitude angered Zhuang Yu. He confidently outlined his glorious path of cultivation. Faced with his confidence, the junior sister dared not tease him further. She grew curious about the limits of sword talent. Zhuang Yu dismissed that question as fanciful. He began to explain the true nature of the sword way. Sword intent is an almost unimaginable realm. The void sword venerable is an existence before which the 10 kingdoms bow. The junior sister didn't give up and kept pressing questions. Zhuang Yu flatly denied possessing such an ability. Zhuang Yu finally arrived at the place where the junior disciple cultivated. He adjusted his breath while worrying about the junior disciple's condition. Yiping's sudden appearance startled Zhuang Yu. Yiping's emaciated look made Zhuang Yu begin to doubt himself. Zhuang Yu couldn't help feeling guilty. In the end, Zhuang Yu chose the bigger picture, deciding to make amends to Yiping later. Yiping slowly rose, still not fully clear-headed, keeping up the formal greeting for the senior brother. Zhuang Yu quickly hid his emotions and adopted a serious demeanor to probe progress. He didn't forget to urge Yiping to show his cultivation results. Yiping frankly admitted he had gains, all thanks to the chance from the senior brother. Zhuang Yu forced a smile, saying it's not strange to not understand it. Sensing something off, Zhuang Yu immediately queried again with surprise. Yiping calmly confirmed that he had grasped about 400 sword moves. Upon hearing that, Zhuang Yu laughed nonstop, deeming the number unworthy of mention. That reaction confused Yiping, who thought himself still too weak. Yiping believed that to the senior brother's eyes, 400 moves were indeed insignificant. He silently blamed himself as inadequate, thinking he lacked talent. Zhuang Yu gently reassured him, suggesting he would not belittle Yiping. Yiping firmly confirmed it, while Zhuang Yu thought he was just making excuses. Yiping began to feel insecure, doubting himself. He modestly explained he only relied on that chance. Zhuang Yu felt awkward, thinking Yiping was underrating the sword way. Zhuang Yu grew indignant, believing cultivators shouldn't be mocked like that. He decided to verify personally, asking Yiping to prove his strength. Yiping did not hesitate and immediately agreed. Zhuang Yu thought Yiping was about to reveal the truth. Yiping summoned a sword into his hand. He relied on all the experience he had amassed. The sword moves were executed in neat succession. Blade light shimmered, a faint gold trailing each stroke. Each move was crisp, carrying a cold demeanor. Zhuang Yu silently assessed, noting Yiping's astonishing speed of draw. Yiping kept changing position as he danced the sword. Offense and defense flowed seamlessly, without a gap. The sword sequence was so continuous it shook even Zhuang Yu. The sword in Yiping's hand never paused. Each blade afterimage carried a chilling murderous intent. The sword aura was so icy it terrified onlookers. The moves kept coming, leaping from 36 to over 100 in an instant. The sky trembled as thunderlight suddenly surged. The thunderlight converged and took the form of a dragon. A dragon's roar echoed the very portent he'd seen in his dream. Zhuang Yu was rendered completely speechless by the sight. The portent fully manifested, and Zhuang Yu's lifelong dream was realized by another first. Before he could absorb the reality, deeper terror seized him. A second thunder dragon appeared, signifying the completion of the lower thunder sword. A third thunder dragon followed closely. Two dragons appeared together, a scene never recorded in history. The thunder dragons coiled around each other with earth-shaking majesty. Sword speed skyrocketed. Yiping's figure nearly vanished in afterimages. The ultimate form of the Four Thunder Sword was finally perfected. East Thunder manifested, its aura surpassing the previous 3 strikes. Heaven and earth fell into absolute cold, life force nearly severed. Only after the moves exceeded 400 did Yiping sheath his sword. For the first time, Zhuang Yu felt true fear. Yiping had fully mastered the Four Seasons Thunder Sword. Yiping showed no sign of exhaustion. In the silence, Yiping began to question the path he was on. A vague enlightenment echoed, and the Tao subtly took shape. Zhuang Yu heard it, but could not keep up. Yiping finally broke free from his mental shackles. Yiping's words only added to Zhuang Yu's confusion. Yiping decided to test the sword path beyond the mundane. He struck a new blow imbued with fresh will. Zhuang Yu watched the blade light and froze. The strike reversed life and death, carrying a sense of rebirth beyond time. Zhuang Yu's gaze slowly shifted to where the sword fell. The tree there suddenly burst into growth. Vitality surged, green covering the ground. Life spread endlessly as if never depleted. As soon as the sword intent was grasped, the heavens transformed. Zhuang Yu felt the sword as the convergence of heaven and earth. The sword's might made it seem a single thought could flatten an army, shattered in perception. Zhuang Yu forced himself to stand still for the moment. Zhuang Yu cried out, unable to believe this was merely sword intent. The blade light vanished, leaving only a wasteland and lingering pressure. Yiping frowned, regretting that the state couldn't be sustained. Seeing the scene, Yiping blamed his talent for being insufficient to hold that power. Hearing this, Zhuang Yu's mind scrambled, unable to accept that self-assessment. Memories surfaced. It was the Void Sword Venerable who had led him into the sword way. That single strike made Zhuang Yu realize Yi Ping possessed a rare sword, nature destined for the peak. Yi Ping cautiously reassured him, saying he was still lacking and would work harder. His heart screamed. But Zhuang Yu became even more determined to hold on to this junior disciple. He forced a calm facade, hiding the turmoil within. Beneath the calm was a profound, unspoken blow. Something inadvertently caught Zhuang Yu's eye. Zhuang Yu couldn't help but ask aloud. The more modest Yi Ping was, the more Zhuang Yu wanted to see the record. At a glance at the first page, Zhuang Yu's expression changed. The records unfolded layer upon layer of sword principles. Each word opened a new world in Zhuang Yu's perception. Though he didn't fully grasp the principles, they shook his resolve. Yi Ping humbly claimed he'd only scratched the surface. Zhuang Yu was utterly disoriented, unable to explain Yi Ping's aptitude. His over 10 years of hardship were crushed by 7 days of the junior's progress. Zhuang Yu's path shattered, leaving only bitterness before a genius beyond the world. He quelled his heart, regained his senior brother bearing, offered parting advice, then left decisively. Yi Ping panicked, thinking his senior brother might no longer want to keep him. Despair surged. Yi Ping only hoped not to be abandoned. Rejected memories returned in waves. No sect would take him in. Cold reality pushed Yi Ping into a dead end. Yi Ping quickly recovered his spirit, resolved not to give up this rare chance. The sect hid among mountains, the scenery like a fairyland. Taihe calmly enjoyed tea at ease amid the peaks. Zhuang Yu's urgent call shattered the peace. Zhuang Yu's panic pulled even Taihe into tension. Zhuang Yu solemnly announced shocking news of a true prodigy. The news left Taihe utterly stunned. Taihe turned pale and demanded a clear explanation from Zhuang Yu. Zhuang Yu revealed the junior disciple's aberrant talent. Taihe was skeptical, while Zhuang Yu was absolutely certain. Zhuang Yu presented the portent as evidence to prove his claim. Taihe was shocked to realize he had misunderstood. The truth revealed, Taihe's heart trembled violently. Pride burst forth, and Taihe couldn't hide his emotion. Taihe was so overjoyed he fainted, leaving Zhuang Yu flustered. Taihe pulled himself together to curb his excessive excitement. Taihe insisted that keeping Yi Ping would benefit both sides. Taihe soberly urged Zhuang Yu to face the realities of cultivation. Beneath the dignified air lay a plan to secure the talent. Zhuang Yu revered his master and vowed absolute secrecy. Calm outside, but inside familiar desperation brewed. Zhuang Yu's cry startled Taihe. Just from Zhuang Yu's expression, Taihe knew it was serious. Taihe's eyes were full of vigilance and sorrow. Taihe panicked and prepared to flee, forcing Zhuang Yu to rush to explain. Taihe turned pale, eyes wary, questioning if there were more crises. Anger flared and Taihe lashed out, scolding Zhuang Yu for alarming people. The sect's condition that met their eyes was one of desolation and decline. Weathered by hardship, Taihe calmly absorbed the new bad news. A cold notice signaled an impending financial disaster for Qinjiang. The unease aged Taihe's face noticeably. Rage exploded. Taihe shouted against the injustice. An explanation clarified the value of wealth in the cultivation world. Spiritual stones were confirmed as extremely precious resources. The gap between demands and financial capability left Taihe desperate. Unlike his master, Zhuang Yu tried to stay rational to grasp the situation. Taihe avoided his gaze and gave a vague number. A hope that had flickered was immediately extinguished. Consecutive conjectures made Zhuang Yu even more uneasy. The harsh truth was exposed with no concealment. The bad news left Zhuang Yu stunned. Ruthless reality left them both without defense. Taihe admitted to a fatal mistake in the past. The words cultivation fund made Zhuang Yu shudder. Former gullibility had turned into bitter regret. A scam had left Taihe penniless. Taihe lost all dignity, reduced to a pitiable old man. In Zhuang Yu's mind, Qinjian seemed condemned. Determination and cowardice intertwined within Taihe. Heaven and earth suddenly trembled at an unusual portent. The sight before them left Taihe stunned. All signs pointed to the junior disciple. Zhuang Yu's worry only grew. Taihe tried to reassure himself, refusing to believe the prodigy could cause such a portent. For the sect's future and the newborn prodigy, Taihe risked everything. Without hesitation, Zhuang Yu bowed, solemnly accepted the orders, showing reverence and obedience. In the blink of an eye 7 days passed, and the cliffside within the sect returned to its former quiet. Over the past days, Yi Ping focused on cultivation, his spiritual force cycling nonstop while his cultivation quietly advanced. His sword movements flowed seamlessly like water, each technique arising naturally as if engraved in instinct. Looking at Yi Ping now, anyone could clearly sense the change from his aura to his bearing. After only 7 days apart, Zhuang Yu was shaken by Yi Ping's progress, an invisible pressure so heavy it was hard to breathe. While Zhuang Yu was still dazed, Yi Ping had already noticed his senior brother's presence. Seeing his senior arrive, Yi Ping immediately stopped and greeted him respectfully, and Zhuang Yu feigned calm in return. Yi Ping seriously reported that he had mastered all the sword moves, though the process had been extremely arduous. Hearing this, Zhuang Yu could only smile wryly. Inwardly, his earlier confidence had been shattered without a trace. Maintaining a grave demeanor, Zhuang Yu explained that true swordsmanship also involves sword kai, sword intent, and sword stance, not stopping at techniques alone. Thick-faced, he set impossibly high standards to slow Yi Ping's progress, though he knew he was fabricating it. With clear eyes, Yi Ping couldn't help but ask about his senior's current strength. Zhuang Yu looked up at the sky and, in a profound tone, claimed he was not worth mentioning. Outwardly inscrutable and lofty, inwardly Zhuang Yu was ecstatic over his perfect bluff. Just the title stirred Yi Ping, strengthening his resolve to follow his senior's path. Seeing Yi Ping fully absorbed, Zhuang Yu went on to invent an entire grand system of ranks. That idea made Yi Ping's heart pound. The more he looked at his senior, the more unreachable he seemed. Silently, a longing was kindled in him, hoping one day to reach that unimaginable height. Faced with that trusting gaze, Zhuang Yu could only turn away, inwardly lamenting his plight. He stood there, elated and still unable to believe his fate had veered in such a new direction. At sunset on the mountain peak, Yi Ping spoke movingly, entrusting his ambitions to the vast rivers and mountains. Watching the junior recite poetry, Zhuang Yu couldn't help but feel intrigued. Mentioning his past, Yi Ping only smiled faintly, saying he used to like reading and painting. Seizing the moment, Zhuang Yu asked Yi Ping to demonstrate his painting skills. Outwardly appreciating the art, inwardly he had already planned how to boast later. Hearing the mention of drawing, Yi Ping blushed and nodded, repeatedly modest. To Yi Ping in his past life, painting had initially been a pretext for an unrequited love. In the end, all efforts could not overcome harsh reality. From then on he closed his heart, realizing some struggles can't change things. Time passed quietly as Yi Ping immersed himself in each brushstroke, completely forgetting his surroundings. Yi Ping's gaze grew sharp, leaving only absolute concentration. Seeing his junior so absorbed, Zhuang Yu couldn't help but nod, feeling a measure of pride. Finishing the painting, Yi Ping bowed slightly, holding it with both hands, his hesitant voice laced with unease. Zhuang Yu leisurely took the painting, still soothing him with gentle words to put Yi Ping at ease. With just a glance, Zhuang Yu's expression completely changed. He seemed drawn into the painting, motionless and with his mind frozen. The entire painting bathed in dusk, the sky both brilliant and muted, stirring the heart. The mountains looked like an immortal realm, each detail so real it felt as if one stood within heaven and earth. It was the meticulousness, in every small corner, that gave the painting the breath of reality. He gently closed his eyes, the image engraved in his mind, especially his own silhouette. Though a simple pose, its majestic and solemn aura seemed ready to spill out of the canvas. The painting carried an invisible pressure that struck the observer's heart. For a moment, the boundary between painting and reality seemed to dissolve. Outwardly he offered mild criticism, but inwardly Zhuang Yu was secretly pleased. Hearing the praise, Yi Ping felt shy and happy, treating the painting as repayment for his teacher's guidance. Only then did he notice a corner of the painting bearing the artist's name. The inscription King Lion Hermit struck his sight. He murmured it again, amused inwardly by the junior's fastidiousness. Just then, a transmission sounded, announcing that the master had a plan. He was briefly shaken, unsure where the master had found a solution to this difficulty. Zhuang Yu left with the painting while Yi Ping stayed behind, uneasy about the sect's future. Elsewhere, the Sun Sword sect brimmed with fervor, preparing for the Grand Sword Forum. Sword moves unleashed, a crimson dragon image coiled through the high sky. The power of the sword stroke left all spectators stunned into silence. The red-haired youth couldn't hide his shock and blurted admiration for the old ancestor's renown. The purple-robed woman spoke coldly, her tone full of contempt for mundane swordplay. Even now, sword kai linger as if tearing the space itself. Tu Hang threw back his head and laughed, a sense of enlightenment flooding his body. In that proud laugh, he believed he had reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship. The red-haired disciple repeatedly voiced astonishment, eyes trembling, convinced Tu Hang had not only comprehended but fully mastered the Spring Thunder Sword, his ferocity beyond imagination. The purple-robed woman murmured, citing Saiji Daoist as proof, asserting Tu Hang's cultivation speed far exceeded the norm, a rare talent among Qingzhou's sword cultivators. The defeated disciples hadn't recovered, sitting motionless with hollow faces as if their spirits were shattered by the blow. The young purple-haired man proactively congratulated Ming's sword, praising the other's gaze that drew in opponents, and judging Tu Hang to have a strong chance at the top spot. Although inwardly pleased, Ming's sword feigned modesty, his polite words only adding to the intrigue. Elder Chen warned that the outcome wasn't decided yet, and they shouldn't be prematurely complacent. Beneath the reminder, Ming's sword subtly mocked the other faction's disciples as inexperienced and overconfident, thus slow to progress. Sensing the implication, the others immediately grew angry, their eyes cold as they demanded an explanation. Seeing the tense atmosphere, the purple-haired youth stepped in to mediate and emphasized the sect leader's order about the top 10. Both froze and simultaneously questioned the reason behind that command. The purple-haired youth said sternly that the reward this time was qualification to enter the Taixuan Sword Tower. As the news ended, both their expressions changed instantly. The value of that opportunity was already obvious and needed no further words. Recalling that opportunity, Ming's sword couldn't hide his ambition. Firmly believing this plan would succeed, Elder Chen remained cautious, warning of the risk of being embarrassed by outsiders. Ming's sword laughed arrogantly and boldly vowed that Tu Hang would not lose to a small sect. The Azure Cloud Dao sect lay in a serene scene, the sect leader's residence seeming detached from the mundane world. Su Changji returned to the sect and immediately brought the junior's painting to pay respects to the master. Seeing the pile of items, Su Changju instantly lost patience and began to criticize. Emotions rising, he harshly questioned the effectiveness of this plan. The master calmly replied that they had no choice but to gamble once and pawn the treasures. Su Changju protested fiercely but was dragged back as the master pleaded for help. The master's gaze suddenly fixed on the painting, and he grew interested. Before anyone could stop him, the master snatched the painting and decided to sell it despite objections. Not long after, the two stood before a pawnshop. The shop owner wore blazing red and greeted them enthusiastically. When asked his intent, the master immediately insisted he had only precious goods with him. The owner smoothly flattered them, his words full of sycophancy. His gaze shifted over the items on display. In a blink, the smile on his face froze. The owner's eyes suddenly landed on an extremely sensitive book. As soon as he realized its contents, his face flushed and he shouted in alarm at finding a forbidden item. He frantically hid the book, inwardly roaring that this treasure must never be sold. Feigning embarrassment, he vowed he'd rather lose everything than sell that item. He boldly quoted a lump sum price, instantly turning pale the shop owner at the absurd demand. He loudly explained, listing each piece to prove he wasn't selling ordinary goods. Even after lowering the price, he received no concession. He decisively set a final price, adopting a hard line to force the other's choice. Zhuang Yu couldn't bear the scene, and just wanted to leave quickly. The shopkeeper's gaze landed on the painting he asked to see it, and was nodded to immediately. On opening it, he felt struck and immediately thought he'd been tricked. Doubt rose in him about the true value of the painting's material. After a careful look, he was certain it was a rare proclamation, its value far beyond imagination. His attention quickly shifted to the name inscribed in the corner of the painting. In an instant his face turned ashen and he was speechless. He hurriedly waved for a servant and spoke in urgent hushed tones. Seeing that attitude, he immediately sensed this was no ordinary item. He watched breathlessly, his heart uneasily fluttering. The servant still had doubts, but he quickly confirmed it was genuine. He changed tone at once and politely invited the treasurer to appraise it in person. The man calmly agreed to wait. The shopkeeper turned back and asked the two to state their desired price. Seeing the matter about to be exposed, he immediately stopped Zhuang Yu from speaking. He laid down his final condition: accept it and it's sold, otherwise leave. He secretly rejoiced, realizing he had gained the upper hand. The shopkeeper feigned a troubled deliberation. Zhuang Yu worriedly warned, but his master waved him off confidently. After consideration, the owner suddenly fixed a staggering price. Taihe gleefully explained, calling it a perfect psychological victory. Before his satisfaction faded, he froze at the number he just heard. The shopkeeper signaled and confirmed that 5,000 taels was the price they had named. Hearing the price multiplied 100-fold, his face fell, suspecting they were joking. The shopkeeper panicked and insisted his business was reputable and would not offend. He was stunned, unable to believe a casually painted piece could be so valuable. He anxiously looked at his master, hoping for an immediate nod to seize the chance to save the sect. At that moment, the master calmly denied it and corrected the true price to 50,000 taels. The number stunned the shopkeeper, who blurted an exclamation at its incredibility. Zhuang Yu went pale, and when the shopkeeper reconfirmed, he received the firm reply, 50,000 taels, not a coin less. Zhuang Yu froze completely, fearing his master had spoken too far. Contrary to expectations, the shopkeeper laughed heartily, admitting the two were masters of their craft. He casually said that with the King Lion Hermit's reputation, 50,000 taels was reasonable. Both master and disciple were utterly stunned, unable to believe the price was real. Taihe gradually sobered, horrified that his often remark had become reality. He quickly composed himself, silently reminding himself to hold the line. Taihe immediately spun a smooth tale, pretending he had long known the painting's value. The shopkeeper agreed, saying the name had already spread in the circle. Though new, King Lion Hermit was considered a rare genius of the Jin Kingdom. As he spoke, he pictured the youth wielding his brush with striking spirit. The brushwork was described as fluid, as if from a divine hand. He added that countless artists emulated that unique, unprecedented style. That style was praised as ushering in an entirely new era of art. He lamented the author's disappearance, a mystery no one had solved. He mused that the person treated fame and profit like smoke and left with great nonchalance. He laughed and asked why such a person wouldn't be worshipped by the world. The two stood rooted, unsure how to respond. Tae nodded in agreement, but the shopkeeper then pointed out a major flaw in the painting. Zhuang Yu forced a joking smile, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. Tae scolded sternly, and Zhuang Yu hurried to placate him to calm his anger. The shopkeeper sighed, lamenting the loss of what he saw as a huge sum. Hearing that, Tae grew fierce, while Zhuang Yu quickly cautioned him for fear of exposing the truth. Tae coldly pressured them to state their true price, and the shopkeeper offered 10,000 taels, claiming the painting lacked a crucial element. Without hesitation, Tae nodded in agreement, leaving the shopkeeper stunned by his decisiveness. With the money in hand, the two quickly left without looking back. Zhuang Yu questioned it, but Tae only warned that greed brings disaster. He cautioned that keeping the money was more important than making Mare showing wealth now would only invite danger. Zhuang Yu praised nonstop, while Tae reveled in his cleverness. The two walked happily side by side, eyes fixed on the banknote. Tae rejoiced as if he'd hit the jackpot, and Zhuang Yu was dazed by the enormous sum. Before their joy faded, Zhuang Yu was scolded for ruining the painting's value. Tae grew suspicious, feeling this young disciple had too many mysteries. Zhuang Yu believed the junior disciple harmless, thinking his luck simply unusual. He decided not to probe further and let things run their course. While Zhuang Yu was still pondering, his master called him away. Tae revealed he would reward the junior generously, making Zhuang Yu more curious. A magnificent building appeared before the two master and disciple. Zhuang Yu gaped, unable to believe they had arrived at the secret origin pavilion. He worried because ordinary people rarely dared to enter here. Tae affirmed everything was for the sect's future, saying he was clearer headed than he seemed. He envisioned a brilliant future for the Azure Cloud Dao sect. Zhuang Yu was terrified, but Tae was confident with the money in hand. He strolled in calmly, coaching Zhuang Yu on how to play the wealthy patron. As soon as they entered, they were warmly greeted by a beauty. Tae couldn't help but admire the lavish surroundings. He immediately assumed the role of a rich man and requested the finest goods. The girl quoted sky-high prices but offered rare discounts. Zhuang Yu turned pale and hurriedly confirmed the figures. The announced prices left listeners stunned. Zhuang Yu was completely struck by the cheap standard of the wealthy patron. Tae reminded him to keep face, while Zhuang Yu desperately objected. Ignoring the warnings, Tae directly asked for the cheapest option. The girl glanced at them with disdain, saying entry-level purchases were almost useless. Tae coldly pressed for a straight answer. She confirmed they sold it, but warned lower-priced items were non-refundable after purchase. Zhuang Yu anxiously urged him to stop, but Tae insisted that for Yiping's talent beginner level would suffice. Zhuang Yu suddenly realized that if an entry-level item fell into Yiping's hands, the consequences would be unpredictable. Zhuang Yu fully agreed, believing this choice suited the junior disciple perfectly. After consulting the treasurer, the girl brought out several options, and Tae immediately asked which had the greatest power. The girl explained the river-piercing sword technique was supreme and could be comprehended to higher levels if it met a genius. Hearing the entrance version priced at nearly 10,000 taels, Tae almost lost his footing. After a moment's hesitation, Tae decided to go all out and resolutely bought the most expensive kind. Tae even planned to scrape together money to buy pills, declaring that if he sponsored someone he would spare nothing. Zhuang Yu began to truly admire Tae's determination. Zhuang Yu joked to ease the tension, while Tae painfully clutched his money as if losing blood. On the way back, Tae couldn't stop lamenting, and Zhuang Yu could only sigh. Tae suddenly remembered the upcoming examinations for the other disciples. Zhuang Yu asked anxiously, but Tae firmly felt no regrets. Without further explanation, Tae pulled Zhuang Yu to another spot. They finally stopped at a roadside stall selling books by weight. Zhuang Yu couldn't understand what made this place a museum at all. Tae recalled the past, proving that cheap things could also be treasures. Tae haggled fiercely, but the merchant refused to yield. After being pressured, the merchant relented and agreed to sell a limited quantity. While bargaining, Zhuang Yu began flipping through the pile of books on the ground. The book titles left Zhuang Yu both surprised and annoyed. Zhuang Yu silently judged these to be useless things, not worth cultivating. Zhuang Yu still couldn't shake his muddled thoughts. Tae happily gathered the books as if he'd won big. Zhuang Yu hesitantly asked, but Tae casually refused. To Tae, the greatest joy was the sect's future. A teasing remark got Zhuang Yu assigned a heavy-duty punishment. Tae forced Zhuang Yu to take the entry manual and play the part of master to teach it. Zhuang Yu looked at the ragtag stack of books in his hands and frowned in disbelief that with these scraps the little junior brother could really rely on his weird insight to make sense of anything. Tae laughed loudly, saying Zhuang Yu was overthinking because of Yiping, stressing that those things were jokes and true techniques wouldn't be sold at a roadside stall. Most of those floating secret manuals merely imitate the appearance of techniques but are empty inside, like fiction compared to real records. He pulled out a few martial holy embryos to show Zhuangyu the fakery, bluntly saying these are meant to deceive newcomers to cultivation. When asked about the other 2 juniors, Taihe calmly said everything was arranged and the books were only to mislead Yiping. He laughed loudly, insisting that anyone who could make sense of that mess would truly be a monster, and he'd eat the books to prove his point. After some thought, Zhuangyu suggested using the old trick again, make another painting to solve the techniques for the other 2 juniors at once. Taihe shook his head and sighed, torn between ethics and benefit, because Yiping's uncanny ability to grasp the Tao made the decision hard. Taihe spoke coldly, unwilling to be forced into a difficult choice, deciding to set the matter aside for another day. He solemnly assigned the task, ordering Zhuangyu to train Yiping wholeheartedly in the short time left to prepare for the Grand Sword Tao Assembly in Qingzhou. Zhuangyu thought he measured and quickly confirmed, for the name Qingzhou Assembly was shockingly significant. He worried that Yiping was still weak, saying sending him to a gathering of geniuses was tantamount to sending him to his death. Recalling past experience, Zhuangyu knew well the terror of that assembly, where geniuses abounded enough to overwhelm people. He instructed carefully, urging Zhuangyu to hide everything because Yiping was not yet qualified to enter a real battlefield. The entire conversation took place quietly in the back hills, where few people passed. On the back hills, Yiping swung his sword without stopping, each move trailing brilliant light that seemed to shake the air. Witnessing such enormous progress, Zhuangyu felt his heart wrench, unable to believe the gap between people. After regaining his composure, Zhuangyu took the initiative to start a conversation. While Yiping was curious about the unexpected visitor, he pretended to be serious and asked whether cultivation had made Yiping feel bored. Yiping candidly said the more he practiced the more he progressed, and he felt no fatigue at all. Those words left Zhuangyu silent, feeling deeply struck. He suggested giving him another technique as support during his training. Hearing that, Yiping became excited and immediately switched tones to complain that he was actually very bored. Inside, Yiping brimmed with expectation, believing a new technique would help him break through faster. Zhuangyu pulled out an ancient book and slowly read the technique's formidable name. The cover bore an image of a fierce beast, radiating blinding, imposing light. Just from the name, Yiping believed this was certainly no ordinary technique. He excitedly claimed only secluded sects deserved to possess such a thing. He seriously explained the technique's origin and emphasized the importance of comprehensive cultivation. Zhuangyu bluntly pointed out a more suitable path for Yiping: base it on the body and pair it with sword Tao to compensate for lacking spirit energy. Outwardly Zhuangyu spoke fluently, but inwardly he was embarrassed and blamed himself for overreaching, since cultivators always prioritize spirit energy over the body. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhuangyu found an excuse to leave, reassuring Yiping by words while thinking only how to slip away before he misspoke. Leaving with a confident air, Zhuangyu secretly planned to return after mastering the sword techniques, since playing the role of a sage was his specialty. Night fell, yet Yiping continued his cultivation without pause. He diligently practiced the sword moves linked to the new body training technique he had been given. While training, the imposing name of the new technique filled his mind, stirring an impatient longing. Though anxious, he forced himself to stay clear-headed, knowing cultivation forbids haste. Facing the temptation, Yiping redoubled his resolve to consolidate his current sword stance, refusing to take detours. The next day, the scene shifted to Zhuangyu's residence. Zhuangyu sat flipping through the technique with a serious expression. Each page he turned made his expression grow uglier. He stared at the writing, inwardly flustered, because he couldn't understand a bit of it. Unlike what he'd claimed, in the back hills, each of Yiping's sword strikes rolled with terrifying momentum, lightning flashing fiercely. The longer he trained, the more ferocious his sword posture became. Speed and strength fused into an unstoppable pressure. After a long period of continuous practice, he finally mastered the Four Thunder Sword formation completely. The entire Four Thunder Sword set was firmly in his hands. Pausing to catch his breath, Yiping excitedly realized he only lacked the final step, sword intent. Approaching the secret manual, he warned himself that comprehending sword intent was more important than anything and could not be rushed. He gradually realized his senior brother's intention, to use this technique to rein in impatience and prevent missteps. In Yiping's eyes, the senior brother's image grew taller for that careful, profound purpose. He gently flipped the book, focusing all his mind on its contents. On the first page appeared the imposing name of an ancient body, cultivation technique. The text introduced an ancient being who survived countless tribulations and fused with heaven and earth. The author argued the world had gone astray, overvaluing spirit cultivation while neglecting bodily strength. The technique described a bodily realm that could rival heaven and earth. The pinnacle of body training was depicted as a godlike form, with power to destroy heaven and earth. Such grandiose words shook Yiping to his core. The manual bluntly warned this path was only for those with extraordinary willpower. To him, hardship was a necessary condition of cultivation. The harder, the more worth trying. Recalling knowledge from a past life, Yiping felt more confident and continued to study the following pages. At the sight of a diagram, he immediately remembered Zhuang Yu's warning, and understood it was an important chart formed by a great one's heaven, earth insight. He frowned studying the diagram, admitting the theory wasn't hard, only the practice posture was bizarre and embarrassing. Despite the awkward feeling, Yiping chose to follow the manual precisely. Practicing the posture while blushing, he kept telling himself Zhuang Yu meant no harm. He forced himself to discard distractions, concentrate, and believe that perseverance would bring success. The scene shifted to Jin Kingdom, where Muyun's studio operated quietly. A man entered, urging whether Mo Fairy's manuscript was finished. As the deadline neared, putting down her pen, the girl replied irritably and asked him not to bother her. He offendedly suggested no one would buy such ostentatious body cultivation manuals and that she should write something more practical. She slumped over the desk in annoyance, complaining aloud yet secretly fond of that style of content. Suddenly remembering something important, she asked for news and learned the major academy was about to open. The news thrilled her as she imagined a learning environment full of talent. 3 days later, Yiping quietly appeared atop the mountain. Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spat from Yiping's lips. Exhausted, Yiping collapsed, painfully realizing he couldn't comprehend it yet and blaming his low aptitude. Though drained, he stood up and forced himself to keep testing his endurance. He set harsh limits, devoting nearly entire days to train. His eyes filled with resolve, believing only multiplied effort could make up for his shortcomings. Under the sun he kept practicing, convinced the simple exterior hid profound secrets. Through the night Yiping stood motionless, pondering that truth might lie in the overall view. He dismissed old ideas and continued thinking day and night, linking them to concepts he'd read. In his mind, the heavenly eye and the law eye represented different layers of insight. He understood he needed to elevate his perception to approach the true laws of all things. Those two concepts kept echoing in his mind, cultivation terms intertwined, expanding his train of thought. Suddenly he froze, eyes flashing as if he'd touched the key point. A faint spark of enlightenment began to form in his mind. He looked into the distance, feeling guided by the true path. He murmured that most see only the sky's surface and miss the deeper truth within. At last Yiping roared in realization, understanding that truth lies in introspection, where God and demon coexist. Upon realizing this, Yiping saw he'd wandered in vain, and that a little delay would have cost him the rare chance. He closed his eyes, using his mind as an eye, knowing only active perception can touch heaven and earth. In the silence, Yiping felt the wind and knew true gods and demons lay deep within himself. In that moment, Yiping snapped awake. A great god, demon's silhouette appeared, aura filling the sky, body radiant like a descended deity. Seeing the figure, Yiping understood it was the projection of his inner strength. A strange omen struck the back hills of the academy, meteors shaking heaven and earth. Some rejoiced, saying the omen signaled that the righteous path was still recognized by heaven and earth. Chided by his senior, the man immediately suppressed his excitement. The senior candidly pointed out the omen was only a reference, not absolute proof. All explanations were halted, leaving only the wait for what happens next. The other calmly said that true talent would reveal itself sooner or later. Stars kept tearing the sky, the omen showing no sign of ending. In the palace, the emperor's gaze solemnly turned to the heavens. The woman beside him softly suggested the omen heralded a new being's arrival. She asked what if the opportunity fell outside Great Saya. The man opened his eyes, voice icy, saying seizing it was obvious. The omen shifted, and a giant demonic beast appeared amid heaven and earth. An ancient figure stood beside the beast, forming a grotesque scene. The old man's gaze pierced the void, cold and sharp. A gloomy smile appeared as he realized the situation had grown interesting. Having made up his mind, he did not hesitate and began austere cultivation. The scene returned to Zhuang Yu's quiet residence. He gritted his teeth and flipped the book despite nausea from frustration. No matter how he tried, his mind stayed blank and he grew more irritable. He sighed, used to his impotence, his worry still his master. Just imagining being chased for debt made Zhuang Yu shudder. Fear of his master's greed chilled him through. Watching the stars tear the sky, he felt increasingly confused and empty. Leaning against the cold rock, Zhuang Yu sank into the night's familiar gloom. Zhuang Yu silently drew on a cigarette, feeling hollow as he pondered his purpose. From afar his junior sister could only watch his lonely figure in silence, a hard to express sorrow rising within her. His senior's unusual behavior left the girl puzzled, sensing he was hiding something. Carrying her doubts, she quietly asked Lu Chen, who was still meditating nearby. Lu Chen calmly pointed out that weak talent was one thing, but as the senior, Zhuang Yu shouldn't give up so easily. After consideration, Luo Chen decided to act, taking on the responsibility of guiding the junior in place of their senior. Around Yi Ping, the strange talismanic scripts continued to circulate around the god-demon image. He sank deep into a meditative state, focusing fully to comprehend every meaning in the technique. Realizing the truth, Yi Ping couldn't hide his joy at understanding the technique belonged to his body alone. In just a few breaths, his consciousness seemed to flow through countless years within a sea of divine thoughts. The god-demon silhouette stood like a pillar of heaven, each arm bearing irresistible majesty. A terrifying pressure spread, making anyone who faced it unwilling to look directly. A beam of golden light descended, pouring vast amounts of cultivation knowledge into his consciousness. His mind fell into absolute void, leaving only boundless silence. His eyes lit up as if reborn. He comprehended the technique's essence, using heaven and earth as tools to temper the body to a new realm. Before him he had only touched the lowest tier. The road ahead remained long. If cultivated to completion, bodily power would reach levels that command awe from other beings. The technique's focus is borrowing the power of heaven and earth to continuously forge oneself. This path is fraught with danger. Only those with iron will dare enter. The huge demand for spirit energy put Yi Ping in a bind, unsure how to cope. He angrily realized he had no cultivation foundation, making any plan hard to execute. Though aware pills could help, he dared not risk it with an unstable base. He suddenly thought of his second senior brother, who might be his only hope. In the quiet sect, the second senior's room still had its light on. Lu Chen focused on alchemy, the spirit pill in his hands vibrating with strong spiritual force. After settling his mind, Lu Chen planned to meet the person the senior had mentioned. At dawn, Zhuang Yu's residence was no longer as quiet as before. Zhuang Yu stood like a guilty man, head down and heavy with mood. Helplessness surged as Zhuang Yu realized he couldn't grasp the book's contents at all. He let himself collapse, roll for a while, then rose and decided to abandon all thoughts, believing that without pursuit failure couldn't touch him. To Zhuang Yu now, concepts like effort or achievement blurred, as he saw himself as merely ordinary. At that moment, Tai suddenly appeared before Zhuang Yu. Seeing Zhuang Yu standing blankly, Tai couldn't hide his surprise. Tai stepped closer and asked whether Zhuang Yu had comprehended that precious introductory sword technique. Zhuang Yu smiled and said that without inner burdens, whether he understood or not no longer mattered. As he finished speaking, sunlight enveloped Zhuang Yu like a fairy scene, startling Tai at the strange sight. He calmly admitted he had achieved nothing, only that he had let go of all attachments. Tai showed no surprise and decided to take Zhuang Yu to the Silent Forest mountain range vein. He believed a life and death trial could open new opportunities, so he would lead the way himself. Hearing this, Zhuang Yu was terrified, unable to believe his master would venture so deep into danger. The Silent Forest mountain range vein was notorious and deadly, where even Qingzhou masters struggled to survive. Tai bluntly said he'd hunt demonic beasts along the way to exchange for spirit stones for the sect. Zhuang Yu turned and fled, while Tai scolded him for claiming to give up yet fearing death. The Fourth Undersword sect sat majestic amid the landscape, deserving its status as Qingzhou's great sect. An elder expressed satisfaction and praised the results of this sword technique assessment. Two outstanding disciples elevated the sword technique to its peak, earning widespread admiration. His tone grew grave, warning everyone to prepare seriously for the upcoming Grand Assembly. The top 10 will be personally taught by the sect master, a rare opportunity. The news left the disciples stunned. He coldly reminded them that results were the most important thing. The emergence of hidden sects made the atmosphere tense. Ancient forces from the 10 kingdoms were so strong the Fourth Undersword sect could scarcely compare. The main hall fell into solemn silence as the elders gathered. The sect leader personally appeared before the disciples to announce major matters. He spoke sternly, affirming this was a matter of great importance to the sect. People began to gossip, offering various speculations. The sect leader dismissed old theories, then unexpectedly mentioned the 10 Nations Academy. Some immediately caught the clue and guessed the legendary academy might soon open its doors. He slowly explained the academy's exalted status, coveted by countless cultivators. Upon grasping his meaning, she grew uneasy and carefully asked whether the Jin Kingdom Court would intervene in this assembly. The sect leader confirmed the suspicion, revealing the court was acting more openly this time, and that he knew the background of the envoy, causing a stir. On Ixuanwu continent, the imperial court's power rivals high immortal sects unless backed by a national stronghold. Even Qingzhou's top forces struggle against the court's authority. After speaking, the sect leader slowly unrolled a painting and presented it to the elders. At a glance they all identified it as King Lion Hermit's work, the style and aura unmistakable. Seeing lingering uncertainty, the sect leader mentioned King Lion Hermit's long disappearance, hinting the painting was a crucial clue. Some guessed King Lion Hermit hid in a minor sect, but large breasts immediately denied it, saying such a figure wouldn't lack patronage. He revealed a powerful sword cultivator existed in the Jin Kingdom Court, of extraordinary origin, holding the title of supervisor, but with sword intention attainment. The sect leader speculated King Lion Hermit might be in the Jin Kingdom, and that the famed supervisor perfectly matched the clues. Some elders remained skeptical, saying these claims lacked proof. In response to doubts, the sect leader merely smiled coldly, showing confidence. He then acted, tossing the painting into the air. A mighty palm force struck, immediately triggering a strange reaction within the painting. In the sect leader's hands, the painting emitted a terrifying aura that made the space tremble. Everyone held their breath, unable to take their eyes off the scene. When the anomaly faded, the sect leader turned and asked if anyone still dared deny his conclusion. He asserted the painting's sword intent couldn't be made by a mortal, and the person depicted was obviously the envoy sent by the court. The elders unanimously applauded, admiring the sect leader's farsightedness. Faced with praise, the sect leader only smiled lightly, appearing utterly composed. He recounted anecdotes about the supervisor, from temperament to movements, further aligning the clues with the painting. Some agreed, but large breasts remained worried and bluntly asked about the approach plan. He emphasized keeping a normal demeanor, avoiding showiness so things could proceed naturally and win favor. After stabilizing the situation, the sect leader felt pleased with his own arrangements. When night fell, the scene shifted to another location. Yi Ping weighed his options, realizing every choice required caution and haste was unwise. While he hesitated, a sudden voice called from behind. The speaker appeared and introduced himself as the sect's second senior brother. The second senior brother's arrival surprised Yi Ping. After a moment to compose himself, Yi Ping respectfully bowed. Lu Chen said he was entrusted by the senior to specifically teach alchemy techniques. Surprised by this arrangement, Yi Ping worried he was being treated as too weak. He slowly reassured Yi Ping, explaining the senior was odd due to inexperience in teaching, and lacking sword talent didn't mean uselessness. He would never belittle his junior. These words steadied Yi Ping, who silently vowed to train hard and force the senior to acknowledge his worth. Without further words, Lu Chen acted immediately, using deeds to lead Yi Ping into practical cultivation. In an instant, something colossal appeared before them, captivating their gaze. It was a great alchemical cauldron, prepared for Yi Ping to begin practice. He let out a sharp command to discard idle talk and immediately begin alchemy practice. Facing the trial, Yi Ping did not retreat and accepted it calmly. While demonstrating, Luo Chen explained the alchemical path and asked Yi Ping, what deserves the title of Supreme Alchemist? Staring at the great cauldron, Yi Ping fell into thought, sensing the question had appeared somewhere in his memory. Seeing Yi Ping silent, Lu Chen changed the question, probing the ultimate limit of the sword way. Speculation rose in Yi Ping's mind and he felt the second senior brother was far from simple. He believed the pinnacle alchemist could drive people mad for a single pill, surpassing ordinary cultivators' limits. Yi Ping thought that because elixirs could extend life, cultivators, no matter how strong, must rely on alchemists. After hearing this, Lu Chen dismissed that view but admitted it wasn't trivial. Not satisfied, Yi Ping added that alchemy could also change fate and a person's innate talent. Lu Chen refuted that and described the highest realm. True alchemy fuses heaven and earth into each pill. Those words stunned Yi Ping, his mind repeating that terrifying notion. Although he'd read many cultivation tales, Yi Ping had never heard of such world-defying alchemy. That very horror excited Yi Ping, who sensed a power rivaling the sword way. He mustered the courage to ask directly, and Lu Chen calmly said he had approached that realm. This made Yi Ping certain the second senior brother wasn't lying, and that the sect ran deeper than expected. Lu Chen inwardly felt a pang, realizing he'd exaggerated, but he kept up an air of profundity. A sudden impulse rose in him having said it. He thought he'd let his junior test it. He quickly guided Yi Ping into the basics, starting from the most elementary foundations. He taught that every pill carries toxicity, but insisted there were methods to refine without side effects. He felt some unease but kept calm and continued speaking. Lu Chen argued the root of toxicity lay within the medicinal materials themselves. By that logic, without toxicity the medicinal potency could not exist either. Finally, Yi Ping proposed the key idea to be non-poisonous. One cannot use ordinary ingredients. Yi Ping countered on the core issue, and his counterpart calmly replied that all knowledge beyond initial perception is easily denied. He cited sword immortals as an example to show disbelief often stems from limited vision. Yi Ping admitted the problem lay in perception limits, not the nature of the matter. He explained that medicinal material is essentially spirit ki transformed during its formation. Lu Chen affirmed high-level alchemy can draw directly from heaven, and earth spirit ki needing no raw ingredients. After considering it, Yi Ping found this claim entirely logical and consistent. Yi Ping pressed further about replacing innate roots and received a rather pessimistic answer. He explained the reason was the enormous cost and consumption, beyond most powers' means. Although he had foreseen it, Yi Ping couldn't help feeling discouraged. Noticing his junior's mood, he quickly pulled him back to the main lesson. He quietly compared the two and found Yi Ping increasingly reliable. The scene shifted to the desolate Jinglan Mountains. The two cautiously entered the mountain vein to survey the situation. Zhuang Yu expressed unease about leaving Lu Chen alone. Tai trusted Lu Chen's ability to keep himself safe. A sudden sound shattered the quiet atmosphere. He reacted immediately and guarded against danger. The source of the noise turned out to be a harmless small animal. Tai took the chance to ridicule Zhuang Yu's timidity. Just as they finished reassuring themselves, real danger emerged. Dawn rose, the space filled with warm light. Yi Ping began the new day feeling relaxed. Before the peaceful scene, Yi Ping let his spirit feel the tranquility of cultivation. The beauty of the cultivation world could not dispel the helplessness over lacking spirit power. Yi Ping chose to study and refine knowledge to find a new path. The rustic style of the repository impressed Yi Ping. Yi Ping sensed the sect's truly hidden character. A small detail on the incense burner made Yi Ping suspicious. Yi Ping quickly dismissed his own absurd conjecture. In the end, Yi Ping realized the principle of cultivation lies in sincerity, not form. After a period of reflection, Yi Ping stepped forward and gently opened the door into the inner space. Entering the repository, Yi Ping looked around, his gaze scanning each shelf as if searching for what he needed. Before Yi Ping lay a series of legendary manuals famed across the cultivation world, each title carrying a terrifying aura and extraordinary provenance. Not only that, the legendary supreme techniques were fully displayed, startling anyone who saw them. The sight left Yi Ping dazed as cultivation methods that should have been guarded were laid out quietly like ordinary books. Feeling as if he'd discovered a museum, Yi Ping couldn't contain his joy and felt even more reverent toward the sect. But he suppressed his excitement, knowing only by keeping a steady mind could he avoid falling into temptation. Recalling the teachings he'd read, Yi Ping resolved to cultivate slowly and steadily, not rush. Time passed and dawn gradually broke on the new day. Waking in the silence, Yi Ping opened his eyes and saw the morning light had arrived. He sighed, feeling time had flown too quickly, not having had time to sink deeply before returning to the daily rhythm of cultivation. Though still unsettled, Yi Ping felt he had understood part of the rules of the cultivation world. The records made Yi Ping realize imperial power was the deepest controlling force in the cultivation realm. A fleeting thought of giving up crossed his mind, even regretting choosing the path to transcendence. Thinking deeper, Yi Ping recognized he was still fortunate that within danger lay opportunity, just as the books taught. While he was lost in thought, a gentle voice sounded from behind. The newcomer initiated conversation, curious about the newly inducted junior disciple. She softly introduced herself, her eyes carrying a friendly smile. The young senior sister's outstanding appearance left Yi Ping momentarily stunned. Yi Ping's embarrassed reaction lightened the atmosphere. The junior sister gently encouraged him, promising to guide his cultivation later. Her words sent Yi Ping's thoughts spinning. Yi Ping blamed himself for overthinking and quickly calmed down. He regained composure and began asking about cultivation matters. He carefully presented the manual he'd chosen. Seeing the name of the technique, she paused for a moment. She quickly reassured him that training with it would be fine. Still uneasy, Yi Ping probed further. The junior sister explained softly, dispelling his worry. Inwardly she quietly smiled, for those manuals were not dangerous at all. Yi Ping suddenly bowed, startling the junior sister into alarm, who hurried over to ask. It turned out not to be pain but tears of happiness, for Yi Ping saw his path of cultivation had not been closed. Before the sister's curiosity, Yi Ping quickly hid his emotions, excusing that finding a suitable method had caused his momentary loss of control. Lin Nahai gently urged him to try harder and took the initiative to shorten their formality and address. He obediently changed how he addressed her. Lin Nahai did not stay long, and Yi Ping cautiously saw her off. With no one to disturb him, Yi Ping quickly focused all his mind on study. Once he grasped the main thread of the technique, Yi Ping found this celestial aptitude method more accessible than he'd thought. According to the records, the body is like a sealed treasure. Once the acupoints open, spirit Q will come of its own accord. The more celestial acupoints one has, the more terrifying the cultivation speed, far outpacing ordinary practitioners. His excitement was quickly doused by reality. Since his greatest weakness remained his innate talent, Yi Ping suddenly saw hope opening up, as the celestial acupoint technique could mend his fatal flaw. The methods he had learned before now felt like pieces gradually coming together. The path lay revealed before him. The only thing missing was spirit power. Just thinking of the day he'd have spirit power made Yi Ping shiver at the potential ahead. Yi Ping acted decisively, beginning the greatest turning point of his life. Elsewhere, trouble was quietly rising as well. Taihe took a heavy blow and lay on the ground, exhausted. Zhuang Yu forced himself to hold on, using willpower to cover the gap in strength. In the crisis, Taihe urged Zhuang Yu to flee to save his life. Zhuang Yu vehemently refused, swearing not to be a heartless coward. He charged back into the fight, determined to stand between the beast and his master. That moment made Taihe realize Zhuang Yu had truly grown up. The scene before him left Taihe astonished. Though reason said it was impossible, an odd confidence rose in Taihe's heart. He poured all his resentment and resolve into each strike. He drained the last of his strength, betting everything on a single move. The gap in power became clear as the demonic beast easily countered. After that blow, Zhuang Yu collapsed completely. Taehi stood frozen, unable to believe the outcome could be so cruel. Even in that dire moment, Zhuang Yu mocked, which left Taehi both angry and pained. The demon beast would wait no longer. Its roar signaled the incoming strike. In the air, savage power gathered into a terrifying sphere of energy aimed at the two of them. At the brink of death, Zhuang Yu wailed his last words, while Taehi only gave a bitter laugh, scolding him for still being undignified. At the moment of deepest despair, a commanding shout suddenly shook the space. Before the killing blow landed, the beast was ambushed from behind. The unleashed power made the space tremble violently. After the blast, the demon beast was torn apart, only scraps falling down. Seeing their savior clearly, Zhuang Yu was stunned, unable to hide his doubt. A nun appeared with imposing dignity, effortlessly slaying the beast in an instant. She asked sternly why two weak ones had crawled into such danger. Zhuang Yu immediately recognized her identity and hastily informed his master. The unusual reactions of the master and disciple made her even more puzzled about the situation. Her gaze slowly shifted to the other person. For a moment she felt an inexplicable familiarity. After comparison, everyone realized the person matched the figure in the painting. She struggled to steady her mind and remember the strict orders before setting out. Taehi warned his disciple in a low voice to remain calm before someone powerful. Silence fell, an invisible pressure enveloping both sides. Finally Taehi broke the silence. The opposing group hadn't yet recovered from the two's actions. The more Zhuang Yu thought, the more frightened he became, for the other's gaze made him uneasy. Worry turned Zhuang Yu's expression colder than usual. His inadvertent stare created pressure that made the others more cautious. She performed a careful salute, trying to remain moderate and polite. The other's change of attitude left Taehi completely baffled. Taehi reluctantly replied with a perfunctory reason. The conversation quickly fell into deadlock. Her gaze suddenly locked onto a spot on Taehi's body. She immediately asked, fearing he had been injured. Large breasts promptly offered the pill, playing her role before the seniors. At a glance the pill horrified them both. It was a rare spirit pill, its value incalculable. Zhuang Yu grew suspicious. Thinking the favor too unusual despite Taehi's explanation, he wanted to avoid trouble. Zhuang Yu quickly found an excuse to leave, politely bidding farewell to cut ties. As the master and disciple left, someone immediately spoke up to detain them. Zhuang Yu sighed inwardly, knowing this was just as he'd predicted and peace would not come yet. Hearing the other's plea, Zhuang Yu grew more wary, imagining all kinds of negative motives. The other cautiously sought instruction on the sword path, asking while fearing misunderstanding. The strange question left Taehi completely unable to grasp their intent. Suddenly Zhuang Yu assumed the role of a master, appearing calm and beginning to speak at length. Zhuang Yu shamelessly declared with confidence that they had found the right person to ask. Taehi panicked and wanted to stop him, but Zhuang Yu ignored him and decided to speak his mind. He casually pointed at a blade of grass, insisting it was also an expression of the sword way. Those words left large breasts dumbfounded. He calmly proclaimed that in his sword way, everything could become an extreme. She couldn't help but question him, finding the argument utterly unreasonable. Taehi wanted to vanish from the scene from sheer embarrassment. Though she didn't understand, she patiently listened as Zhuang Yu spoke of sword mindedness as the highest truth. Zhuang Yu immersed himself in imagination, silently rehearsing sword moves in his mind. In truth it was all supreme boasting, blurring the line between fact and fiction. Everyone fell into a dazed state. No one clearly knew what they just heard. One among them suddenly cried out, claiming he'd comprehended the truth. The others, though understanding nothing, grew more fearful of appearing unenlightened. They all reluctantly praised him, pretending to have fully understood. An outsider watching couldn't make sense of the scene. The sight made him suspect everyone had lost their minds. Zhuang Yu ended indifferently, signaling he didn't want to be entangled further. He left a vague conclusion, leaving everything to fate and insight. In her eyes Zhuang Yu had become a rare, venerable master. Meanwhile far away Yiping remained secluded, steadily accumulating strength. At that moment Yiping halted, closed his eyes tightly, and sank into contemplation as if touching a crucial point. Before him unfolded a serene, aesthetic scene so beautiful it stirred his spirit, like standing before a living painting. When he looked up, Yiping suddenly understood. Doubts vanished. He had located the celestial acupoint he'd long sought. But joy was short-lived as Yiping despaired. Realizing the spirit power required far exceeded his capacity, Yiping hesitated and felt resentful, while gradually realizing the earth absorption technique, seemingly simple, hid deep mysteries. Yiping inadvertently approached what most cultivators never considered, understanding essence rather than mindless practice. From past life experience, Yiping linked cultivation to pursuing results without grasping underlying principles. He understood that only by grasping how spirit power operates could he walk his own path. Yiping's gaze hardened, resolving to follow his own way regardless of the outcome. He kept thinking, reminding himself to adapt his mindset and persistently seek a suitable approach. Time passed quietly. 7 days flew by while Yiping continued his relentless cultivation. Looking back at the lack of progress, Yiping couldn't help feeling disappointed and stuck. After much thought, Yiping decided to set this cultivation aside for the time being. Life around Yiping quickly returned to its familiar peaceful rhythm. Yiping relaxed, returning to the simple pleasure of painting to soothe his spirit. Noticing pleasant weather, Yiping chose to paint a landscape to enjoy the tranquility. Just then, Lu Chen suddenly visited his junior brother Yiping. Seeing Yiping painting, Lu Chen was surprised and suspected his plan might come true. As expected, Lu Chen quickly asked Yiping to paint his portrait. Yiping gladly agreed and even politely asked if he wanted a landscape included. Lu Chen declined, saying a simple portrait would suffice. Yiping accepted seriously, treating it as a way to repay his senior's kindness. Lu Chen posed while Yiping focused on painting until the work was finished. At a glance, Lu Chen was stunned, unable to react. Seeing his image in the painting, Lu Chen was amazed by how much presence he seemed to have. Lu Chen repeatedly praised Yiping's skill, making him bashfully modest in response. Yiping suggested adding a poem to the painting, but Lu Chen tactfully declined. Pleased, Lu Chen stored the painting, unaware that omitting a poem lowered its value. After some polite words, Lu Chen took his leave and Yiping gently saw his senior off. On his way home, Lu Chen was excited, planning to show off the painting and regretting not adding a poem earlier. Yiping fell into silence. His mind turning the painting had given him a vague yet clear insight. A notion flashed. Yiping decided to immediately paint another landscape, and picked up his brush without hesitation. The brush moved smoothly in his hand, ink flowing naturally as if guided by his intent. The first ink dots were placed, each mark precise and orderly. Strokes followed one another, the composition gradually emerging. In an instant his eyes flashed, as if he'd caught a spirit light. Wrist turned decisively, a powerful sweep like rolling clouds and wind. Ink spread in layers, overlapping tones creating clear depth. The final touches were gently added, the painting closing in harmony. Before long, the painting was completed in full. Seeing the work, Yiping immediately knew he had succeeded this time. He stood motionless for a long time, his mind fully immersed in the painting. At that moment Yiping suddenly realized, standing straight, that painting and the way were indistinguishable. He closed his eyes slightly, understanding that the brush was guided not by the hand but by the mind. When he opened his eyes, Yiping felt the way flow naturally, without forced effort. A brilliant phenomenon appeared before him, the stars forming into a majestic dragon shape. In a flash Yiping realized that rather than forcing spirit energy in, it was better to harmonize his innate knack with heaven and earth. Observing the spirit energy of all things, Yiping saw that spiritual force merges according to intention. The dragon-shaped star image roared, joining the surging stream of spirit energy across heaven and earth. Before the dragon's chant, Yiping remained calm and unmoved by fear. Though not fully understanding, Yiping quietly witnessed the entire strange spectacle. This was the Zhulong innate knack, step by step guiding cultivators toward ancient inheritance. Yiping frowned slightly, doubting the connection between Zhulong and Zhu Nine Yen. He recalled the old legend of Zhu Nine Yin in existence that held time and space and created all things. Yiping was extremely excited, believing opening the innate knack qualified him to try cultivating the divine demon art. His gaze fixed on the painting, not looking away for a moment. A flash of enlightenment lit Yiping's eyes. He revised the painting according to his new insight and felt his mind open upon finishing. As his mind transformed, the painting changed accordingly, while his second senior brother cultivated on the cliff. Lu Chen stood motionless, his entire spirit deep in cultivation. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning from the high sky shocked Lu Chen awake, his eyes snapping open. By instinct he looked up, his gaze locked on the sky. The strange phenomenon made Luo Chen ponder with thick clouds and thunder. Could this signal an omen or an impending calamity? At the thought of disaster his face went pale, and he cried out in panic, fearing a great catastrophe had truly struck. Without hesitation Lu Chen sprinted at full speed, shouting that rain was coming as he ran, his garments left drying in the yard being Su Chengju's precious clothes. And if ruined the result would be tragic, the thought driving him to run desperately. Meanwhile at the quiet cultivation site, Yiping stood still, calmly observing the vast sky. High above, a faint shape slowly took form, like a colossal dragon's silhouette hidden within the clouds. Yiping stood between heaven and earth, closing his eyes to regulate his breath as spirit energy gathered around him, his aura rising with unprecedented intensity. Soon after he opened his eyes, looked at his hand and murmured in wonder. Since the innate knack opened, spirit force had flooded into his body like a torrent, nearly uncontrolled, something his master said only the Yuan Ying realm could experience. Thinking further, Yiping grew more excited, for even Yuan Ying cultivators rarely absorbed spirit energy so unbelievably fast. In his understanding, cultivation should guide Kai step by step, refining gradually. That is the basic foundation of the path. Yiping was different. He let spirit energy flow into his body without complex refining, relaxed like sunbathing as the force rose on its own. At this time he had not realized he had turned onto a completely different method of cultivation, forming a unique path. Thinking this, Yiping frowned, though the influx was terrifying. Only one innate knack had opened, the second remained dormant. Could it be infinitely greedy? Unable to find an answer, he set it aside and decided to switch to practicing the primordial divine demon body refining art. Decision made, Yiping slowly extended his hand before him. Then he raised his hand high, speaking in a steady voice as he used spirit energy to connect with heaven and earth. Borrowing force from the earth, he concentrated spirit power in his hand and struck the ground hard. In an instant a dragon image formed around the furnace. Yiping roared, gathering heavenly might into a mighty divine hammer. As he raised his hand, thunder from dark clouds struck down relentlessly. In a short time lightning condensed into a colossal hammer suspended in midair. Immediately after, the giant hammer slowly descended. It gradually bore down toward Yiping's position. Seeing this, Yiping joyfully shouted. Believing that channeling spirit power meant everything would go as planned, he focused on the spiraling spirit power above, where lightning kept striking the ground. Suddenly he frowned, sensing something wrong. The force had clearly exceeded his control. In the blink of an eye, fierce lightning poured down without mercy. His whole body felt locked, unable to move, forced to watch helplessly as it happened. A spirit light flashed in Yiping's eyes. He seemed to grasp the problem in time. From the sky, a terrifying power-bearing heavenly authority crashed straight down. Stunned, his gaze blank, he had no understanding of what had just occurred. Unable to stop it, Yiping was blasted far away by the force. His body felt invaded bit by bit, fierce pain forcing him to grit his teeth and endure. He clenched his teeth, using all his will to resist the torment. In utter despair, a cold thought flashed: could he die here? Teeth grinding, eyes wide, his pupils turned white as pain reached its peak. At that moment a strange power burst from his body, and his damaged flesh began to heal. Not long after, Yiping stood up, panting, his hand restored as if never injured. Pale-faced with cold sweat running, yet his eyes burned with an unusual brightness. Now the power around him surged, golden light spreading to envelop the space. Blazing red flames rose along the trail left by the thunderous strike. Soon the flames spread, forming a ring of fire that enclosed Yiping. Yiping quickly channeled spirit energy, erecting a protective layer to withstand the searing heat. But the situation worsened rapidly as the fire gradually pierced the defense. The flames burned his body, and Yiping could only scream in pain and despair. In that moment, he felt himself about to be consumed, vanishing from the world. The fire devoured his clothes and flesh, leaving Yiping like a charred human coal. Only his eyes shone brightly like stars in the night. Yiping collapsed to his knees, his blackened hands clawing the ground, his gaze appearing cracked. Suddenly, a fierce stream of spiritual energy shot straight through his abdomen. Yiping writhed like a stranded fish, thrashing and howling in pain. Soon he realized his body was undergoing inexplicable changes. A streak of azure spiritual energy appeared, slowly calming the violent flames. The energy diffused slowly, covering Yiping's entire body. Wherever the spirit energy reached, flesh and meridians were restored. In a short time his flesh regenerated and his hair began to grow back. After the ordeal, Yiping collapsed exhausted, and after a short while his hand trembled slightly, showing signs of waking. Yiping propped himself up, gritted his teeth and uttered pain, his eyes growing clearer as the hurt etched into his memory. Muttering under his breath, Yiping slowly stood up. At that moment his throat burned, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Yiping raised his blood-stained face and muttered as if wanting to say something. A twisted, mad smile crept across his face, and even Yiping felt a strange exhilaration. The scene shifted quickly to the gloomy, silent forest mountain range. The two disciples exchanged puzzled looks and couldn't help asking if that elder was really the Jin Kingdom's overseer. Large breasts glanced coldly and displeased, asked if they were doubting the sect master's judgment. The two disciples hastily explained they were only curious, because the elder looked like only 3rd or 4th level Kwai refinement, and had a master with him. Large breasts snorted and scolded them for judging by appearances. She offered another hypothesis that stunned the disciples, suggesting the master-disciple relationship might be a disguise. Large breasts angrily rebuked them, saying everything was already clear. A disciple frowned, asking if such elaborate concealment was necessary. Large breasts explained that special envoys must be utterly secretive, and with Elder's intelligence, fake identities or founding a small sect were plausible. Hearing this, all three were amazed, unable to believe someone could establish a sect on their own. Large breasts analyzed that such domineering speech couldn't come from someone at Kai refinement. That presence can't be faked. Just by looking at his back they could tell that aura couldn't be counterfeit. Large breasts added that the man following had a deceitful look, unfit to be the elder's master. Elsewhere, Taihe sneezed repeatedly, muttering curses at whoever was slandering him. Large breasts warned that if they remained naive, encountering the demon race later would be dangerous. The disciples immediately bowed their heads, all admitting the master was right. She sternly ordered them to keep the sect leader's identity secret. And if they meet him again at the Sword Dao assembly, they must not act rashly. When she finished, Large Breasts clasped her head and lamented, unable even to cry, inwardly thinking how these foolish disciples would be lost without a master as brilliant as her. Elsewhere, outside the edge of the Jinglin mountain range, Dai Ho and Chang Yu looked utterly miserable. As soon as they exited the mountain vein, they breathed a sigh of relief, finally free. Dai Ho cried until his nose ran dry, cursing and swearing he would never return to that damned mountain vein even if beaten to death. It must be said that after separating from the Four Thunder Dao sect group, the master and disciple repeatedly fell into countless dangers. Each time it was a brush with death, the chaos so extreme that fleeing was the only way to survive. If not for the top, great elixirs gifted by Elder Four Thunder, Dai Ho would have died at least once. And Chang Yu even emptied a month's savings to buy pills to force his master to take. Now Dai Ho lay exhausted on the ground. A Jinglin mountain range that seemed manageable nearly cost him half his old life. Chang Yu could only sigh, advising his master to be content since at least he obtained some beast study materials, while he himself returned empty-handed. At this, Chang Yu's eyes reddened. His cultivation hadn't progressed at all. And though they say surviving disaster brings future blessings, where was his fortune? Dai Ho forced himself upright, leaned against the wall, and sighed. The materials they gained were worth little, far from enough to buy cultivation manuals for the junior disciples. But from this trip, Dai Ho realized that face and morals where vanity money was the hardest to get, so he'd set pride aside and find little Yiping to paint for cash. Chang Yu frowned and looked into the distance, lamenting that making money truly was too hard. Then he suddenly asked whether the second senior brother had told the little junior brother to paint recently, since he always wanted a portrait of himself. Those words immediately cheered up the dejected Dai Ho. Of course. How could he have forgotten that? He then urged his poor disciple to hurry back and ask if the boy really painted. He would grant him the title God of Wealth Painter. The scene shifted to the next day. At the residence of the second senior brother, Lu Chen felt uneasy, his right eyelid twitching incessantly, as if something bad were about to happen. However, after a breakthrough in alchemy, his mood lightened, and he decided to visit Yiping. Lu Chen quietly criticized Zhuang Yu, thinking Yiping's matter wasn't serious enough to be upset over. At the same time, the scene moved to Yiping's dwelling. Yiping calmed himself, circulating Kai and steadying his breath, leaving no room for error. Lu Chen approached slowly and softly asked about Yiping's cultivation progress. Yiping greeted respectfully and cheerfully said he'd reached a minor success in his practice. He forced himself not to be arrogant, trying to suppress his pride. Yiping didn't know his words shocked and made Lu Chen suspicious. Lu Chen pressed him for details, and Yiping explained it was a non-toxic refining pill method taught by the senior brother. Hearing this, Lu Chen warned sternly that he must not use lies to cover up his true ability. Yet Yiping's calm manner made Lu Chen waver, giving the impression he spoke the truth. Lu Chen was secretly astonished, thinking even the great senior brother would never dare claim such a thing. Yiping suddenly produced a spirit pill, asserting it was his own achievement. Lu Chen froze in disbelief, immediately suspecting a mistake. Yet Lu Chen thought Yiping was deceiving them, taking credit with someone else's pill. He decided to straighten Yiping out, not letting him go off course. He feigned friendliness and suggested Yiping refine another pill so he could guide him. Outwardly amiable, inwardly he waited for Yiping to reveal a flaw. He pretended to hesitate, saying he was free and willing to wait. Lu Chen acted regretful, expecting Yiping to find an excuse to decline. Contrary to his expectation, Yiping agreed immediately, shaking Lu Chen. Lu Chen coldly ordered him to begin, stressing Yiping would bear the consequences. Yiping sat cross-legged, stabilized his energy, and calmly said he would start. Lu Chen watched silently, plotting how to make the boy see his mistake. After one watch, Lu Chen still appeared calm. By the second watch, Lu Chen's expression wavered. By the third watch, his face was markedly different from before. By the fourth watch, Lu Chen was as if petrified. Yiping smiled and presented another pill, calmly declaring it finished. Lu Chen couldn't take his eyes off the 7-colored pill in Yiping's hand. He inhaled deeply, forcing himself to stay composed. Lu Chen covered his face and turned away, causing Yiping to worry a mistake had occurred. Yiping didn't know Luo Chen was struck by a shocking thought about Zhuang Yu. Seeing Lu Chen act strange, Yiping cautiously asked if the pill wasn't good enough. Lu Chen kept telling himself not to lose control. That mind state was the root of cultivation. Contrary to his intent, cold sweat soaked his whole body. His eyes widened, his whole body nearly numbed. In the end, his cultivation resolve collapsed, leaving only turmoil inside. Yiping blinked and softly called Luo Chen's name. Lu Chen trembled for a long time before forcing out a perfunctory reply. That curt answer nearly made Yi Ping think something serious had happened. Lu Chen tried to endure, completely denying the possibility of a non-toxic refining method. Even he wavered before the pill's implausible colors. By his knowledge, he recognized this pill far exceeded ordinary spirit concentrating pills, reluctant to accept it. Its aura was like a spirit pill, yet its quality surpassed limits. Unwilling to believe, Lu Chen decided to test it directly. As soon as he inhaled, his spiritual power was drawn in without resistance. His face immediately went pale as if his soul had been pulled out. Lu Chen nearly went mad, realizing this was a terror-level spirit concentrating pill. He understood his emotions had fully shown and could no longer be hidden. Lu Chen forced his mind blank to avoid revealing anything further. With no choice, Lu Chen hurriedly left, leaving Yi Ping to continue his practice. Yi Ping was puzzled, since the promised guidance seemed forgotten. He didn't think much, assuming his second senior brother was just tired, and returned to focus on pill making. Yi Ping briefly thought of his body cultivation achievement, which would surely astonish others if revealed. However, he quickly suppressed his pride. Knowing he was still too inexperienced, he immediately steadied his mind and continued his practice, not letting petty thoughts intrude. The scene shifted to Lu Chen's residence. Lu Chen staggered forward, his spirit seeming to leave his body. He couldn't hold back tears, feeling 10 years of hard training paled beside the new disciple just starting out. Lu Chen sank into self-doubt, thinking his life so far was a humiliation. Overwhelmed, he briefly contemplated abandoning alchemy. He knelt and raised his head to question heaven about such an absurd existence. His faith in cultivation was shaken that talent completely overturned his beliefs. He collapsed to the ground, body convulsing as if ready to give up life. A remnant will forced him to pull himself together. He refused to end it that way. In the dead of night, a lone figure silently stood atop Qingjin Mountain. He bitterly realized he was still stuck in Foundation establishment, the path unbearably hard. Staring at the cold moon, Lu Chen felt his solitude deep. He suddenly thought of writing a poem on his junior's painting to pour out his heart. He convinced himself that expressing feelings with poetry was the way of the ancients. He hesitated, unsure what sentiment suited to put to brush. His calligraphy was strong, each stroke carrying a chilly wind and snow. He felt the words, though rough, fit the scene, especially the warmth amid cold. Reading the whole piece carefully, he found the latter half still forced. Without hesitation, Lu Chen wiped the ink clean to start anew. He felt all ideas empty, unable to convey his feeling. Suddenly a new inspiration flashed in his mind. After pondering, he put pen to paper again and the words slowly formed. Lu Chen reviewed it and felt satisfied, believing it complete. Though only a few simple lines, he still regarded it as a masterpiece. He reveled in self-satisfaction. Believing the poem was perfect in thought and scene, he felt calmer, thinking the poem would move his senior and ease his sorrow. He quietly hoped for praise, only waiting for his senior's return. Lost in the view until time passed, as night fell his heart grew heavier. Lu Chen sighed wearily, feeling only his senior could understand him. He sat quietly on the cliff, letting the moonlight cover his solitary figure. From afar he looked like a poet immersed in moonlight. Lingru curiously asked why the second senior brother, like the first, liked to be alone on the mountaintop. Zhuo Wu thought the calm was only surface, that Lu Chen was actually always watching the senior. Inside, Zhuo Yu felt slightly annoyed, thinking Lu Chen too full of himself. Ling Ru gently guessed the matter of the little junior brother had made Lu Chen so sad he cried. Zhuo Wu became more puzzled, unclear how the little junior brother was involved. Ling Ru wanted Zhuo Yu to help teach, but he dodged it using an exam as an excuse. Ling Ru suggested asking the senior sister since the other senior brothers were absent. Zhuo Wu feared the senior sister would be too harsh in teaching, and thought leaving Lu Chen alone was safer. Ling Ru realized Lu Chen was nearing his limit. Zhuo Wu shirked responsibility and went to rest, leaving Ling Ru to sigh in dismay. Ling Ru hesitated, undecided whether to ask the senior sister. Lu Chen sat alone for a long time motionless. Finally he realized he had been waiting in vain. He fretted at a bad premonition, feeling the streak of misfortune wasn't over. Lu Chen laughed at himself, thinking things couldn't get worse, and he wouldn't be praised. He returned to rest, forcing himself to stop wandering thought. Early morning, Azure Cloud Dao sect was unusually quiet. Outside the sect gate, two wary figures sat to rest. Taehi felt relieved returning, vowing not to spend recklessly again. Zhuang Yu complained he didn't want to go back to the mountain vein, and Taehi secretly disliked the place too. Taehi immediately plotted, telling Zhuang Yu to seize the chance to ask Yi Ping about painting. Zhuang Yu resisted, saying exploiting the little junior brother was too embarrassing. Reluctantly Zhuang Yu agreed, and Taehi was so pleased he was scolded and driven off. In the mountains of Qingjin, a straw hut stood quietly. A woman with a voluptuous figure leisurely emerged from the hut. Muxu breathed the outside air, thinking leaving seclusion was much more pleasant. A sweet voice called from afar, softly addressing her as senior sister. Ling Ru joyfully approached, saying she had hesitated to contact the senior sister, not knowing if she had emerged yet. Muxu smiled mischievously, leaned close to Ling Ru, deliberately teasing her junior sister. Muxu's teasing knew no bounds, making Ling Ru blush in protest, which only made her tease harder. She sipped wine and joked that Ling Ru's figure was developing well, and would bring someone future blessings. Though used to jokes, Ling Ru still reminded her that drinking was strictly forbidden by their master. Muxu sighed with satisfaction after a sip, looking extremely content. While explaining, Muxu tempted her, saying wine eased the spirit, and asked if Ling Ru wanted a taste. Ling Ru warily avoided, but Muxu paid no heed and lunged to embrace her. Holding Ling Ru's shoulder, she curiously probed about the sect's situation and the senior brother's cultivation progress. Ling Ru replied that the two senior brothers seemed affected by the new junior brother's arrival. Muxu, excited to hear more, urged Ling Ru to tell the details. Ling Ru recounted how the junior brother couldn't learn, causing the two seniors to collapse and often sit silently by the cliff. Muxu burst into laughter at the story, finding the situation remarkable. Ling Ru complained that the second senior brother was nearing his limit. Muxu advised Ling Ru to focus on her own cultivation and not be affected by the senior's decline. Satisfied, Muo flew off, deciding to personally observe that junior brother. Ling Ru watched the figure go, feeling both uneasy and consoling herself. The scene quickly shifted to Yiping's residence. Muxu slowly approached the youth there. Yiping sat cross-legged cultivating, focused under the early sun. Muxu watched with pleasure, secretly praising her master for choosing well. Suddenly Muxu sensed Yiping's aura was not ordinary. As the feeling became clear, she was shocked to recognize a physique familiar from the late emperor. Muxu dismissed the thought at first, unable to believe the sect would harbor such a prodigy. She examined Yiping closely, an idea slowly forming in her mind. After comparison, Muxu was terrified by the exact similarity of that rare physique. Suddenly Yiping opened his eyes. Their gazes met for an instant. Yiping's glance accidentally fell on an overly soft and dazzling sight. In a flash Yiping froze, his mind blank. He staggered back, both scared and embarrassed, loudly demanding the other's identity. Muxu tried to appear proper, soothed him gently, then said she wanted to check his condition, prompting his anxious questions. Waves of emotion rose in Muxu. The more she confirmed her suspicion, the more determined she was not to let this chance pass. Yiping, fearful and embarrassed, kept his distance and cautiously asked her identity. Muxu moved closer and gently introduced herself, making Yiping flusteredly comply. Yiping awkwardly reminded her to keep some distance, his voice stammering from tension. Muxu didn't relent, laughing as she teased the little junior's embarrassed manner. Finally Yiping staggered and fell, startling Muxu into sudden worry. Seeing him unconscious, Muxu immediately dropped the playfulness to check him carefully. Recognizing the familiar physique, Muxu realized there was hope for a future comeback path. She resolved to nurture Yiping, believing a great opportunity had appeared. When Yiping moved, Muxu immediately called out in delight. Yiping woke confused, not understanding what had happened. Muxu spoke softly, advising Yiping to cultivate in moderation and not overstrain himself. Yiping, embarrassed, repeated the words he had misunderstood for confirmation. Muxu reassured him and revealed she had a method well suited to him. She warned in advance that the training would be extremely arduous. Yiping resolutely expressed his determination to pursue the arts to the end. Muxu teasingly asked how Yiping would react to her special teaching methods. Yiping panicked and backed away, his face flushing at the implication. Muxu laughed loudly to reassure him, amused by his naive look. Yiping awkwardly declared his resolve, fearing his talent would be belittled. Muxu silently scolded her master, thinking this physique could never be called ordinary. She calmly noted Yiping's body had been modified many times. Muxu recalled her own past and understood the suffering Yiping had endured. She warned Yiping that cultivation would become even more arduous going forward. Muxu stated plainly that the world was about to change and harsh faces would soon be revealed. Muxu warned that humanity faced the risk of being oppressed by demon clans and beast demons. No matter how belittled he might be, Yiping only needed to remember that the senior sister protected him, guiding him toward the peak. Muxu calmly stated that the stronger one became, the more one must shoulder and never slack off. Those words moved Yiping, who felt the noble spirit of a true sect. Yiping's eyes lit up, and he vowed resolutely not to disappoint his senior sister. A strange sound suddenly came, and a butterfly flew in that drew their gazes. The white and green spirit butterfly lightly landed as if whispering something to Muxu. Muxu's expression turned grave, killing intent flared, and she vowed no mercy for the enemy. Spiritual power surged around Muxu as she said an urgent matter needed handling first. The sudden pressure chilled Yiping's spine. He had never seen his senior sister so terrifying. Muxu transmitted a sigil containing a cultivation method into Yiping for him to practice first. Yiping was stunned, hardly believing this was the supreme clay refining technique. This method was famed for its defiant power, enough to overwhelm many realms. The greater the power, the harsher the conditions, and few can bear it. To succeed, one must temper their foundation to levels far beyond ordinary people. The gap in combat strength in a clash would be unbelievably vast. High or low achievement entirely depends on the practitioner's ability to comprehend. Those with outstanding nature will not be limited by the Tao of Immortals. Conversely, poor aptitude will be blocked from the start, because it was so severe. No one had ever completed this technique. Thinking of that, Yiping felt frozen in place. Yiping comforted himself yet feared the biggest issue remained his comprehension. Considering his own aptitude, Yiping nearly broke down. Yiping cast off hesitation and resolved to embark on the path of cultivation. When he came to, the senior sister was gone, so Yiping took the chance to practice on his own. Suddenly someone called, startling Yiping to turn around. Zhuang Yu appeared, putting on a familiar demeanor as he asked about matters. Unaware of anything, Yiping greeted his senior brother with a bright smile. Zhuang Yu pressed questions, and Yiping honestly mentioned the senior sister. Those two words stunned Zhuang Yu, his face going pale. Muxu suddenly appeared and leaned to Zhuang Yu's ear to ask about sword cultivation. The unexpected question drained Zhuang Yu's face as he panicked, lunged to hug Yiping tightly and stammered that the senior sister was supposed to be in seclusion. Ironically, Yiping hugged back, patted his shoulder to calm him like a child, saying the senior sister had left, causing Zhuang Yu to freeze, wondering if he'd seen an illusion. That reaction angered Zhuang Yu. He rushed forward to strike, scolding him for being rude, forcing Yiping to dodge and repeatedly apologize. Noticing something odd, Yiping curiously asked if the senior brother was very afraid of the senior sister. Zhuang Yu immediately blushed and denied it, loudly claiming he only saw her as a cockroach, yet grew more flustered as he spoke. Seeing this, Yiping quietly realized the senior sister was actually the strongest in the sect. Zhuang Yu turned away to hide his embarrassment, awkwardly admitting the senior sister was formidable and advising Yiping to learn from her. After speaking, he quickly changed the subject, glanced around and pretended to discuss the scenery to ease the awkwardness. Embarrassed, Zhuang Yu hesitated for a long time, tormented that as a senior brother he had to ask his junior for things. He told himself to set aside pride, recalling events at Jinglan Mountain Vein Life and the great cause mattered most. Finally Zhuang Yu flushed and stammered, asking whether Yiping had created any more paintings or poems recently. Yiping calmly replied that he had painted more, 2 paintings in total. Hearing this, Zhuang Yu was secretly overjoyed as if he'd found a treasure, cheering inwardly that his goal was near. Though he suspected as much, he still awkwardly asked where the 2 paintings were now. Yiping casually said one was still in his room. The other he had given to second senior brother, and offered to fetch it if the senior brother wanted it. Zhuang Yu broke into a sweat, hastily waved it off with false politeness, relieved that at least Lu Chen kept one. He clapped Yiping on the shoulder, feigned familiarity and encouraged him to train hard, hiding his intent while noting the boy's body was firmer than before. Those words made Yiping very happy. He silently thanked his senior brother, believing it was all thanks to the supreme method Zhuang Yu taught, leaving Zhuang Yu bewildered at what powerful thing he'd supposedly taught. Yiping casually mentioned the ancient divine demon art, and guessed his brother must have found some godly technique, only puzzled why such a person feared the senior sister. Hearing this, Zhuang Yu silently left, unable to explain and thinking further questions would only torment his spirit more. Seeing his senior leave so quickly, Yiping was surprised and wondered why he couldn't ask more about cultivation. After walking some distance, Zhuang Yu's conscience gnawed at him fiercely, a choking feeling he could not bear. Eventually he returned and bluntly asked whether that manual was truly powerful. Yiping answered immediately without hesitation, asserting it was an extremely awesome method, especially for training the physical body. Upon hearing this, Zhuang Yu gradually calmed and then turned to leave. Before going, he reminded Yiping to focus on cultivation and not disappoint his senior brother's expectations. Those words filled Yiping with motivation, belief in the future, and he secretly thought his senior brother very cool. But he had no idea that complex emotions were churning in Zhuang Yu's heart. Zhuang Yu privately mocked himself as all show with little real strength, watching others cultivate even from discarded manuals while he stagnated. After self-reproach he sighed, reminding himself that the junior brother was no ordinary person, and he should concern himself with the sect's greater cause and future. Zhuang Yu warned himself that Luo Chen must never repeat past mistakes, especially with painting, or the consequences would be dire. Thinking that, Zhuang Yu couldn't help but smile, believing Lu Chen was mature and wouldn't cross the line like he once did. At the door, Zhuang Yu called out loudly, identifying himself and telling Lu Chen to come open the door quickly. Waiting with no response, Zhuang Yu frowned in puzzlement. He clearly sensed Kai in the room, unlike Luo Chen's usual disciplined habits. Before his suspicion faded, the door before him slowly creaked open. Lu Chen appeared with wet, red eyes, trembling as he called Zhuang Yu's senior brother. Zhuang Yu was stunned, not understanding why Lu Chen had kept him waiting so long. Before he could react, Lu Chen suddenly rushed forward and hugged him tightly. Lu Chen sobbed chokingly, insisting Zhuang Yu need not explain. He already understood everything. The embrace tightened. Lu Chen kept stressing his understanding, making Zhuang Yu embarrassed and hastily insist they were just brothers. Zhuang Yu immediately stepped back and asked for space. Only then did Lu Chen voice the guess that his senior's sadness came from the junior's talent. Zhuang Yu gritted his teeth and admitted it, unwilling but aware the truth couldn't stay hidden long. Lu Chen continued hugging Zhuang Yu and crying, lamenting that the junior's talent had crushed him. And only the senior could understand that feeling. Unable to bear it, Zhuang Yu pushed Lu Chen away and warned him sternly to keep his dignity, causing Luo Chen to panic and apologize for being overly emotional. Zhuang Yu quickly let the matter drop and directly asked whether the junior had given Lu Chen a painting. Lu Chen froze, amazed that Zhuang Yu knew about it. He hurriedly nodded, happily saying he'd been waiting for the senior to see it, then frantically searched his person. Proudly, Lu Chen presented the painting to Zhuang Yu and pointed to the inscription, believing only the senior would understand. But the moment Zhuang Yu saw the messy crossed outlines on the painting, Zhuang Yu's face instantly went rigid, his expression falling into emptiness. Lu Chen didn't notice the change, still smugly boasting of what he saw as a great achievement. Eagerly, Lu Chen kept urging Zhuang Yu to evaluate and praise it, but noticing Zhuang Yu's strange complexion, the atmosphere immediately turned odd. Lu Chen still misunderstood, thinking his talent had stunned the senior, so he continued imploring for a fair judgment. Zhuang Yu stood statue, still eyes fixed on the painting without blinking. What drew Zhuang Yu's attention was not the figure depicted in the painting, but the poem Luo Chen himself had written, which had been disastrously edited and erased. Seeing this, Zhuang Yu's face flushed red and his anger completely erupted. The poem was a mess. Characters scribbled over the painting to Zhuang Yu. Even something worthless shouldn't be ruined like this. Lu Chen still smiled obliviously, thinking the senior overreacted, unaware Zhuang Yu had drawn his sword, and even bragged that the work hadn't reached its highest realm. Before he could finish, Zhuang Yu coldly raised his sword. Sword light flashed, and Lu Chen was blown away stunned. Though thrown far, Lu Chen still hadn't reacted, his eyes full of confusion. Pale-faced, Lu Chen trembled and asked what Zhuang Yu intended to do. Zhuang Yu replied coldly that the one to be questioned was Lu Chen himself. Lu Chen completely misunderstood, loudly accusing Zhuang Yu of envying his literary talent. That provoked Zhuang Yu to lash out. A hard kick accompanied by a blunt rebuke. Struck repeatedly, Luo Chen angrily fought back, insisting he was not afraid. Zhuang Yu gave no chance to plead, landing blow after blow until Lu Chen fearfully begged for mercy. Zhuang Yu continued using Luo Chen as a target to test his moves, completely ignoring the pleas. Despite Lu Chen's pitiful screams, Zhuang Yu pursued him relentlessly. As he fought, Zhuang Yu cursed under his breath, pouring all his resentment onto Lu Chen. In his rage, Zhuang Yu shouted that messy painting or scribbling poems could be tolerated. What enraged him most was the signing an act he saw as utterly destroying the value, unworthy of the name. Zhuang Yu gripped tighter and yelled, pained that a treasure had been ruined. A few strokes of ink had shattered the hidden worth in the junior's work. He chased after him, shouting he would have someone else teach him, leaving Lu Chen running and bewildered. Not long after, Lu Chen was caught. He cried out that Zhuang Yu had truly gone mad. After the beating, Lu Chen's face bore the marks, hurting and resentful, silently cursing Zhuang Yu. He covered his mouth and sobbed loudly, vowing this grudge could not be forgiven. A heavy atmosphere settled over Zhuang Yu's residence. Zhuang Yu clutched his chest, panting and murmuring regrets, pain at the thought alone. A flash of impulse to go back and beat him again crossed his mind. After thinking it over, Zhuang Yu forced himself to calm down. The priority was to hide this from the master. If the master learned of it, Lu Chen would face catastrophe. So Zhuang Yu decided to conceal it since he was his junior. At that moment Ling Ru stuck her head in, startling Zhuang Yu, who asked why she had come. Ling Ru asked anxiously in a low voice what had happened between the two. She said she saw Luo Chen running to the master crying, demanding to report him. Hearing that, Zhuang Yu panicked and shouted, asking if it was the master's quarters. Ling Ru, puzzled by his tension, only nodded and asked what had happened. Zhuang Yu sighed, rubbed his forehead, consoling himself that it was Luo Chen's own doing. The scene shifted to Taihe's dwelling. Lu Chen burst in, running and wailing, begging the master to save him from being beaten to death. Taihe came out surprised, asking who had beaten Lu Chen into such a state. Lu Chen clung to the master, claiming injustice, forcing Taihe to push him away and pull him into the room. Lu Chen tearfully accused Zhuang Yu of beating him out of jealousy for his literary talent. Taihe seemed unconvinced, saying Zhuang Yu wouldn't go that far, and he'd never heard Lu Chen had literary talent. Lu Chen angrily protested, claiming the master favored others and fearing Zhuang Yu would keep bullying people. Taihe told him to explain, and Lu Chen angrily said it was over a painting, and he'd nearly been beaten to death. Unaware, Lu Chen didn't know that merely mentioning the painting made Tai-He extremely unsettled. Tai-He asked where the painting was. Lu Chen immediately produced it, saying it was proof he'd retrieved it. Tai-He examined the painting in Luo Chen's hands carefully. Tai-He's face turned drastically pale and terrifying, even more than Zhuang Yu earlier. Trying to control himself, Tai-He slowly asked if the poem was written by Lu Chen. Lu Chen scratched his head in bewilderment, but still nodded in admission. Tai-He frowned and asked further if the edits and the signature were also his doing. Lu Chen began to feel uneasy as he realized the master's reaction matched Zhuang Yu's exactly. Tai-He set a stern face and coldly asked again to confirm. Seeing the master turn away, Luo Chen panicked and asserted the poem was his. Tai-He said coldly he was only worried he couldn't restrain himself and would affect others. A mad memory from long ago flashed through Tai-He's mind, so chilling that just thinking of it sent shivers down the spine. Sounds of beating and Lu Chen's wailing echoed through the training room. Moments later, Luo Chen lay motionless on the ground in a pitiful state. Tai-He raged, recounting how he and Zhuang Yu nearly died over a few dozen tales of medicinal resources. Tai-He sneered, accusing Luo Chen of doing nothing to benefit while destroying immense value. Still furious, Tai-He intended to strike again, prompting Lu Chen to beg in terror. At the most dangerous moment, Zhuang Yu rushed in to stop him. Zhuang Yu held Tai-He back, but Tai-He kept shouting that Lu Chen didn't understand their hardships. Suddenly Zhuang Yu whispered a shocking secret about another painting by the junior. Hearing that, Tai-He's tension eased, and his tone softened as he asked to confirm whether there really was another gifted painting. Zhuang Yu quickly produced the other painting, explaining it was an ordinary feng shui piece the junior prepared, because he knew the master liked such things. At a glance, Tai-He choked up, eyes reddening with emotion, repeatedly praising the junior as the one who put him at ease. Excited, Tai-He grabbed Zhuang Yu's hand, cheerfully saying that if they could exchange it for advanced techniques, all those years of hardship at Jinglan would finally pay off. Lu Chen covered his bruised face, eyes vacant, unsure whether the others were acting strange or he had gone mad. Tai-He coldly warned Luo Chen, sparing him this time out of regard for the junior, but stressed never to touch others' paintings because of their great value. Though the others were willing to let it go, Lu Chen couldn't accept that resolution. Overcome with indignation, Lu Chen screamed in protest, saying he could be beaten but not falsely accused of destroying the painting. Crying, he argued he couldn't believe the painting was worth tens of thousands of taels, accused the master of favoring Zhuang Yu, and demanded clarity. Zhuang Yu tried to calm Luo Chen, urging him to stop, but Lu Chen kept shouting and refused to yield. Lu Chen glared coldly at Zhuang Yu, warning him not to pretend to be meek. The matter was far from over. Zhuang Yu frantically explained the painting's value, but Lu Chen immediately threatened him into silence and withdrawal. Lu Chen laughed crazily and proposed a bet. If the painting was truly valuable, he'd accept punishment. If not, he'd submit to being beaten without resistance. Both men looked at Lu Chen in doubt, asking if he was truly committed to that wager. Lu Chen resolutely affirmed, showing he had no hesitation. Tai-He agreed to descend the mountain. Luo Chen strode forward confidently, while Zhuang Yu whispered that this time he likely wouldn't escape. Dusk fell and Lu Chen's shadow stretched unusually long, like an omen of coming events. In the evening light, it felt as if a pivotal memory was quietly sinking into the past. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed, and the scene shifted to the dark Suanyuan forest. Zhuang Yu walked cautiously beside Tai-He, whispering to ask whether there were dangerous beasts on the mountain. Tai-He feigned calm to reassure him, while Zhuang Yu turned pale, recalling the trauma of being bitten by a snake years ago. Thinking of the potential gain, Tai-He laughed loudly to dispel fear, and Zhuang Yu also cheerfully praised the junior for bringing a bright future to the sect. Suddenly a female voice behind them called Tai-He's name, causing the two master and disciple to turn around. A pink-haired woman sneered, mocking that Tai-He still hadn't improved after all these years. Tai-He's expression immediately darkened, inwardly cursing that he'd run into someone he wished to avoid. She scoffed, asking if the two of them also wanted to join the Sword Dao gathering. She feigned surprise, then mocked them, noting their sect hadn't even reached 3rd rank. She bluntly jeered that Tai-He wasn't qualified to attend the Grand Assembly. The pink-haired woman coldly affirmed her junior sister's past choice was right, saying her current path far surpassed Tai-He's. Her taunts drained Tai-He's face pale, a bad premonition rising within him. She deliberately arched to show off, scrutinized Zhuang Yu, then half praised, half mocked, that looks mean nothing if you re a disciple of someone once famed but now taking on incompetence. Zhuang Yu gave a cold smile, replying that those lacking looks can be the most dangerous. One need only look at her master to understand. Hit on a sore spot, she flew into a rage and loudly demanded who he was insulting. In anger she lunged forward and slapped Zhuang Yu, shouting that he was rude and to shut up. Seeing his disciple struck down, Tai-He standing beside them turned ashen, momentarily shocked into inaction. The pink, haired woman covered her mouth in a cold laugh, saying if the master couldn't teach his disciple, she would do it instead. Unable to bear his disciple's humiliation, Taihe rushed up and shouted that his pupil didn't need others meddling in his instruction. Taihe launched a counterattack, but all his moves were easily parried by her. Holding the upper hand, she curled her lip in contemptuous, confident amusement. She tightened her fist, gathered force, and struck back at Taihe with a punch. The blow landed fiercely, power rippling outward as rock and earth exploded into dust. She grabbed Taihe's collar, raised her fist threateningly, and sneered that his disciple was useless and one more punch would finish him. Zhuang Yu tried to rush to his master's aid, but was stopped by an invisible force, unable to move. She taunted that she wouldn't ruin her prospects to kill a worthless man, she wasn't as foolish as them. With her arms folded behind her back, she coldly said if they still dared seek revenge, they should bring their disciple to the sword trial tournament. She mocked that she'd have her disciple openly kill them on the platform, doubting they had the nerve, then turned and left. Taihe lay flat on the ground, blood covering his face, looking utterly pathetic. Weakly he blamed himself, saying with an inept master like him the disciple could only endure humiliation. Zhuang Yu sat silently beside him, hearing Taihe's remorse and thinking his own mistakes had stalled the cultivation of his sect brothers. Without hesitation, Zhuang Yu twisted Taihe's leg to force him quiet and tend his wounds, causing him to howl in pain, curse, and threaten to expel him from the sect. After the chaos, the two master and disciple finally fell silent, sitting on the rock each lost in their own thoughts. Zhuang Yu broke the silence, seriously saying he'd made a decision, prompting Taihe to turn and press him for details. He looked straight ahead, his voice firm as he declared he would definitely enter the Qingzhou Sword Dao tournament. Hearing this, Taihe went pale, and unable to believe it, asked if he'd lost his mind. Worried and alarmed, Taihe advised against acting rashly over old insults, but Zhuang Yu quickly reassured him, saying he had misunderstood. Taihe looked at him in puzzlement, reminding him that opponents at the tournament were far stronger and old enemies still lurked. Zhuang Yu replied solemnly that it was all for the junior, leaving Taihe stunned as he repeated the word junior. After a brief silence, he said that since meeting his junior he truly understood what genius was and realized the vast gap between himself and others. With wind-blown confidence, Zhuang Yu proudly declared that even injured, facing such a genius he had to give his all. Once shortening the gap even a little would suffice. The resolve in his words made Taihe feel like he was looking at someone else. And Zhuang Yu affirmed this tournament was his declaration of will. The scene shifted to Yi Ping's quiet training spot. Yi Ping swung his sword cleanly, splitting the blazing fireball in midair. Facing the violent explosion, Yi Ping stood unmoving, calm and unshaken. After the strike, he slowly sheathed his sword, looking as if he'd just finished something ordinary. Sensing his achievement, Yi Ping smiled slightly. After 72 failures he broke through to refining Kai level 2, his strength exceeding expectations and making him feel extraordinary in this mystical cultivation world. In the dusk light, Yi Ping strolled back, deciding to stop training for the day and recalling his senior's advice about balancing rest. Behind a nearby fallen rock, a figure peeked out to spy. Zhuang Yu hid behind the rock, watching vigilantly, telling himself that being discovered would ruin his honor. Zhuang Yu stared at the sword mark on the ground, his heart racing, realizing a single slash by the junior hid insights that could advance his sword technique. While observing, Zhuang Yu suddenly noticed an odd detail that made him freeze, his gaze fixed on the book on the rock, a gut feeling telling him it was the very thing he once gave the junior. Night fell, the moon thick over the rear mountains, and an eerie silence enveloped the area. Lu Chen curled up in the dark corner, hugging his knees, his body hurting too much to ignore. Zhuang Yu approached and softly called out, only then noticing Lu Chen was there. Lu Chen looked up puzzled, asking if his senior's cheerfulness meant he had come to visit him. Zhuang Yu gave no explanation, stood, whistled, and turned his back to leave. Suddenly Zhuang Yu waved his hand in the air, performing a series of strange movements. Seeing that, Lu Chen was stunned, thinking his senior had completely lost his mind. At the foot of the mountain, a figure silently observed the whole scene. Zhuo Wu laughed loudly, teasing the two, while seriously telling his junior sister not to imitate them. She was the sect's true hope. Lingru expressed dissatisfaction, saying without those two geniuses she wouldn't care much about the sect leader position, either. In a flash 3 days passed, and the atmosphere around the senior's residence turned unusual. Taihe happily held the notice and showed Zhuang Yu, revealing it was the enrollment list for the sword trials, and that he'd already registered both of them. Hearing this, Zhuang Yu went pale. The words enrollment list rang in his head like a disaster. Trembling, Zhuang Yu held the paper and stared at his master in horror, unable to believe he had really submitted their names. Taihe blankly retorted that Zhuang Yu himself once said they needed the list to show determination. Zhuang Yu cried out in anguish, admitting he had only been bluffing before and wasn't serious. Taehi froze, confirming this, while Zhuangyu collapsed, shouting that his master knew best how capable he truly was. Taehi calmly dropped a bombshell. Forging the enrollment list would get them arrested by the authorities. Angry, Zhuangyu rushed to force his master to withdraw the names, but Taehi stood firm that they could not withdraw and forced him to participate, prompting Zhuangyu's non-stop shouting in fury. The scene shifted to the simple, tranquil house where Yiping lived. Hearing he'd have to attend the Sword Dao gathering, Yiping froze, his mind blank with shock. Taehi confirmed he'd enrolled them both, prompting Yiping to ask anxiously, worried failure would bring shame. Taehi looked at Yiping expectantly, stressing that a cultivator who is too fearful cannot go far on the path. Yiping, slightly embarrassed, explained he wasn't afraid to lose, only worried a bad result would harm the sect's reputation. Taehi bluntly said the sect cared less about winning, and more that the tournament was a chance to temper one's spirit, since real combat allows no hesitation. Taehi sternly lectured on the importance of real combat, though inwardly he felt pleased with his lesson. Yiping replied seriously, vowing to give his all and his spirit in the tournament. Taehi offered careful advice, praised Yiping's progress, and Yiping humbly credited his good fortune to his senior. Taehi secretly wondered what this so-called Qingfeng providence really was and what Zhuangyu was doing behind their backs. Yiping immediately set to preparing and left to train, leaving Taehi moved by his decisiveness. Taehi felt both glad and worried, thinking he must inform Mu Su to protect Yiping and blaming himself for being useless. The scene shifted to a nameless, desolate mountain vein. A woman training below quickly caught the pink-haired woman's eye. She seriously noted the other's clear improvement, saying this sword gathering was crucial for the sect's future. The disciple answered confidently, but was immediately scolded by his master for underestimating King Zhou's strength. The disciple was embarrassed, unsure what his master was implying. She mentioned a hidden sect in King Zhou called the Great Sun Sword Sect, startling the disciple. Seeing the disciple's naivety, she tapped his head and explained that a hidden sect wouldn't be easily found. She recounted the Great Sun Sword Sect's glorious past, and how it was split after being feared by the imperial court. Reports indicated a branch of the Great Sun Sword Sect was hiding in Qingzhou, waiting for the chance to rise again. Looking at the inexperienced disciples, she coldly questioned whether they had the mettle to face a hidden sect. The scene shifted to the Four Thunder Sword Sect in Qingzhou, where an order was issued to hunt the great Axia princess who was in hiding. The commander asserted the princess was hiding within Qingzhou's borders. Someone cautiously asked if the missing person was the eldest princess. The commander immediately denied it, stressing this was the 10th princess and ordering absolute secrecy to secure the sect's guarantee. CG confidently accepted the mission, vowing to complete it and hunt down anyone who obstructed him. The scene moved to the renowned pawnshop Tianxia in Qingzhou. A woman stood silently, her gaze deep on Zhuangyu's portrait hung on the wall. Seeing this, a servant immediately called the shopkeeper to ask the price of the painting the young lady favored. The shopkeeper flashed a flattering smile, praising her taste and saying the painting was the shop's treasure, now offered at the anniversary price of 100,000 taels. The price stunned the subordinate, who couldn't believe his ears, while the shopkeeper scoffed that 100,000 was already the lowest price. The subordinate, enraged, glared at the shopkeeper ready to argue, but the young lady stepped in and ordered him not to be rude. The princess calmly analyzed that the painting was indeed an original, but she couldn't raise the price too high out of personal preference. Of 30,000 taels was a fair and reasonable price. The subordinate still refused to accept it, exclaiming that 30,000 taels for a painting was insane, making her only sigh and say that art was something he couldn't understand. She grabbed his head and lowered her voice to remind him that outside he must not call her princess but Moferi, causing him to hastily comply though it was habitual. After a moment's consideration, the shopkeeper immediately nodded and agreed, announcing acceptance of the 30,000 taels offered by the customer. On hearing the reply, her face brightened. She was delighted to add another work by Hermit Kinglian to her collection, though not a pure landscape. Any writing by her idol made the trip worth it. At the same time, in the Jinglin mountain range of Qingzhou, the sky grew dark and heavy, with continuous thunder tearing the heavens. No one expected a colossal lightning strike to hit the body of the demonic beast directly. In an instant, the monster was reduced to a scorched mass of flesh, the smell of burning spreading through the air. The one who acted was none other than the bearded elder's disciple. Prompting the elder's lavish praise, in just a year he had fully grasped the Four Thunder Sword form, a genius even in Jin Kingdom. The youth looked smug, deeming Qingzhou's demonic beasts too weak. He modestly credited his master for the guidance, making the elder smile and say no need for courtesies. Achievements alone mattered. He still wondered aloud, asking his master why, if the Great Sun Sword Sect's swordsmanship was clearly far superior to the Four Thunder technique, they still practiced this other method. The elder then spoke gravely to Ming Hao that it was time to reveal the truth he had kept silent before to avoid affecting training. The Great Sun Sword sect was far stronger than imagined but had declined for certain reasons. To revive the sect they must enter 10 Nations Academy to recover hidden treasures. To avoid exposing their identity, they had to compete using a different method. Luckily this was not difficult for Ming Hao. Upon hearing this, his eyes hardened with resolve, and he said decisively that he understood and would seize first place. The elder warned sternly that confidence was good but not to underestimate enemies' talents were everywhere. Do not lose to a newcomer. And the youth quickly clasped his hands in acknowledgement. The scene shifted again, this time to the rear mountains of the Azure Cloud Dao sect. Yiping stood there with a noticeably muscular body, as if he had endured countless days of relentless training. Yet in his heart, all of that still felt far from sufficient. With exactly 1 month left before the contest, Yiping vowed to devote more time to training. Since without talent he must work harder to catch up. His divine demon body, alchemy and innate aptitude had stabilized his foundation. But the 4 Thunder Sword intent and supreme forging still fell short. At refining Kai level 2 he could hardly compete, so this contest was not for showing off. His goal was not to disappoint his master's and brother's efforts and expectations. And Yiping encouraged himself that a month could change much. As he was about to resume training, Taihe rushed over in a panic, prompting Yiping to ask in surprise why his master was here. Taihe's face was unusually grave. He said the organizers sent an urgent notice the competition was moved up and would start in just 2 days, requiring immediate departure. The news stunned Yiping. He couldn't believe it and protested that he wasn't ready, but Taihe granted no more time and urged him to set out at once. Hearing the dire news, Yiping recoiled as if from a strange entity. Wasn't it said yesterday there was a month? Why the sudden change? Taiho warily rubbed his temples, saying he didn't know either. He had just seen the secret dispatch this morning. The revelation turned Yiping's face from anxious to dazed in an instant. He panicked and tried to flee, pleading to stay home. Seeing this, Taihoa grabbed the pair of dirty underwear he hadn't washed in 10 days to hold him back. You can't, your name's registered, and if you run the whole sect will be blamed. He still tried to make excuses, saying he wasn't prepared for such a huge tournament, and would only embarrass the sect. Taihoa soothed him, saying, "Child, you must have confidence in yourself. At worst, you'll be knocked out in the first match." Then he pushed Yiping onward. "Go quickly, child, consider it just for fun." Yiping grew uneasy and asked if he really had to leave. At least let him pack some clothes. But Taiho wouldn't let him waste time, and played the live like a millionaire for a day trick. "Take this purse, and buy whatever you need on the road." A short while later they entered a white mist, so thick it obscured everything. Yiping found it odd and asked, "What about master and senior brother? Wasn't he also on the competitor list?" Taiho answered oddly without hesitation, "Him. Don't worry about him," which surprised Yiping greatly. He added, "Maybe he's frightened now, but it's fine. Once a sect registers, one person showing up is enough. Let's chat a bit, or honestly I don't think any of those senior brothers have your talent. And remember, don't tell them anything." Truly, a month's notice shifted a moment's call. He kept urging Yiping, "Come on, we must hurry. If we relate to register, it'll be a big problem." Hearing this, Yiping's doubts hardened and he resolved to expose the truth about him. Yiping's eyes sharpened, his lashes trembling. The scene changed to outside the Lunnan Province mountains. Taiho leisurely warned, "Once we step into Lunnan Province, be extremely cautious. The local demon kings aren't to be trifled with. Even golden core ranks may not match them. Luckily I know a very secret shortcut. Stick close and you'll stay alive. If you slip and get lost, you won't reach the contest gate before becoming a demon beast's meal." He stayed silent the whole way, unnervingly calm from start to finish. After thinking it over he finally spoke up, "Senior, you really aren't my master, are you?" Which left the man stunned. He coldly demanded, "Then who are you really?" The man was silenced for a long moment, unsure how to answer. Then the strange figure stared at him and said, "At first I thought you must be the dumbest of that old man's disciples. But it seems I judged poorly. You rather clever kid." Exposed, the fake Taiho circled and asked in puzzlement how he had realized. Yiping's face grew serious and he replied steadily, "Though I haven't known master long, I've never heard him speak ill of his brothers behind their backs or tell me to keep silent. Those aren't his habits. Subtle differences kept appearing on the way, so I tried to trick you a bit and was right." In an instant the pink-haired woman revealed her true form, smiling in surprise. "Fooled by a brat, then I will drop the act. Never speak ill of your seniors. This immortal is surprisingly kind to worthless disciples like you, quite to my taste. But if you can see me, what then?" Yiping replied calmly, deducing from her words that she was his master's enemy and intended to take his life. At the mention of that person, the pink-haired woman showed contempt and sneered that the other wasn't worthy to be her rival. She coolly assessed that the opponent was merely a titular sect leader of a declining clan. She mocked the bygone glory, recalling how the man was once hailed as a prodigy adored by countless nun disciples. Like a deep wound being touched, she screamed in rage, claiming she had sacrificed all dignity only to be treated as merely a friend. Yi Ping was stunned and hurriedly cut her off, not wanting to hear about the previous generation's private matters. Offended, she sneered coldly, stressing that positions had changed. One was the sect's elder leader, the other a fallen figure. She crazily gloated, insisting that only when she saw his disciples fall one by one would he admit he was useless. Yi Ping was at a loss, seeing her lost in self-dramatization, oblivious to the present. She changed tone, admitting she had originally planned to wipe them all out but instead grew interested in taking Yi Ping as a disciple. Yi Ping coldly refused without hesitation. She smiled oddly, implying she favored those with talent. Before Yi Ping finished speaking, she vanished, leaving only an afterimage. In an instant she reappeared behind him, startling Yi Ping. She lunged forward, swinging a dagger without hesitation. With danger imminent, Yi Ping immediately leapt aside to avoid the killing blow. He quickly put distance between them. Yi Ping angrily scolded her for the sneak attack and striking at vital spots. She brazenly defended herself, saying fights need not be honorable and hitting weaknesses is right. Yi Ping was wary and contemptuous, understanding why his master disliked her. He mocked her bluntly, provoking the pink-haired woman into a furious scream. She retorted angrily, accusing Yi Ping of judging without understanding. Suddenly she burst into tears and lamented, leaving Yi Ping awkward and unsure how to respond. Yi Ping hesitated, wondering if there was some hidden motive. Then she laughed maniacally, admitting she was deceitful by nature. She suddenly struck, certain Yi Ping couldn't dodge in time. She unleashed a lethal move that knocked Yi Ping far away. However, when she looked back at the weapon in her hand, she froze when she saw the dagger warped and bent. Yi Ping roared fiercely, calling her a madman beyond saving. She widened her eyes in horror and anger, denying his insult. Baffled why Yi Ping's body was so unusually hard, she gritted her teeth, insisting her years of assassination expertise had never failed, and accusing Yi Ping of using some secret trick. Yi Ping paused a moment, then muttered that if she hadn't mentioned it he might have nearly forgotten it himself. Yi Ping said solemnly that the vicious strike caused no harm. Growing more astonished at the power of the divine demon art, the pink-haired woman released a dark purple aura, revealing she was merely an incarnation yet still capable of suppressing a refining Kai cultivator. Darkness shrouded her face, only her purple eyes flashing, sending chills down spines. She struck down from the air, roaring a curse aimed straight at Yi Ping. Wild streams of purple energy shot out in all directions. Within the chaotic purple aura, a giant figure gradually emerged. Yi Ping's phantasm manifested, countless arms grasping mighty magical treasures. She panicked, realizing Yi Ping had used only his pure physical body to block the fatal strike and suspected this was the legendary body immobility form. Seeing Yi Ping stand proud in his radiance, she concluded even a golden core cultivating body would struggle to do this, so there must be a hidden secret. Her eyes flashed with malicious light, assuming Yi Ping had a master guiding him and deciding to probe further. Her form gradually blurred, admitting the forced appearance of an origin spirit clone was indeed hard to sustain. She laughed wickedly, crushed the object in her hand, and realizing time was short switched to another plan. She detonated Blood Kai and released a lust beast pill to lure beasts, plotting to use others to kill Yi Ping and seize his treasures. Her figure faded away, still grinning with delight and leaving behind a vicious taunt. The pink-haired woman vanished, leaving a vague promise that Yi Ping watched silently. Yi Ping frowned in doubt, unclear what plot the gift concealed. 3 large demonic beasts suddenly appeared, encircling Yi Ping from all sides. A red-eyed beast dove down from the air to attack. Yi Ping immediately sensed something was off about the situation. He moved like a lightning bolt, slipping through the gap beneath the beast's body. Golden sword lights overlapped and shot out in succession. Yi Ping used his flying sword skillfully, striking the beast's weak points head-on. On the battlefield, Yi Ping recalled his master's words about the sect's finances and decided to train and gather some resources while he could. Examining the beast corpses, Yi Ping judged them small fry and the documents obtained unworthy of concern. Yi Ping casually pressed deeper, knowing true value lies in danger. Ahead lay a mountain vein shrouded in thick mist, the deepest area of the silent forest mountain range. A giant creature with razor claws hid in the darkness, signaling they'd entered the Demon King's domain. A burly man sat on a rock sighing in boredom, feeling these dull days would never end. In the dark, a red-eyed beast lay in ambush, while the longtime Demon Kings of the silent forest mountain range had no idea a seemingly ordinary youth was about to shake their sanctuary. Yi Ping walked deeper into the interior of the silent forest mountain range with ease. His demeanor was nonchalant, his gaze barely acknowledging his surroundings. A massive great demon king revealed itself, its muscular body radiating might. The great beast dove from above, so fast it cut the air. Yi Ping closed his eyes, his expression strangely calm. He relied on hearing to catch every movement of the opponent. Yiping stamped his foot hard on the solid ground. A blazing golden slash was immediately unleashed. The great beast was struck back, rolling on the ground in pain. Yiping rushed in, hammering it repeatedly with his sword bundle while cursing the sneak attack. He roared in anger, revealing a deep obsession with being ambushed from behind. After a while, the great demon king was utterly subdued, trembling as it begged for mercy. The great beast panicked, wondering why it had met such a terrifying human and suspecting he was a disciple of a major sect. To its eyes, Yiping looked far too ordinary, completely unlike that other person. Yiping judged seriously that weak beasts weren't worth harvesting, and it would be better to go deeper. As Yiping spoke, the great demon king immediately knelt and begged, offering spirit stones as the price for its life. Desperate, the great beast promised to give all its wealth in exchange for its life. Yiping sneered, not believing a deep mountain demon would have human spirit stones. The great beast led Yiping to a cave piled with treasures. Yiping was stunned by the horde, and the demon king confidently insisted he wasn't lying. Yiping, alarmed, suspected illusion magic, and the demon king hastily denied it and begged to explain. At Azure Cloud Dao sect, Taihe was puzzled by his twitching left eye and formed odd suspicions. Taihe scolded himself as fanciful, thinking it shameful for a cultivator to believe superstition. The demon king bowed and explained about a rare specialty in the mountain vein. He described a one-eyed spirit monster ginseng, odd in shape, weak but extremely rare. The demon king admitted he was lucky to obtain the spirit monster ginseng and sold it to humans for spirit stones. Yiping doubted the tale, since the demon king's strength didn't match such treasure. Still suspicious, Yiping decided to take the spirit stones back to the sect, leaving a portion for the demon king as mercy. The demon king was surprised Yiping wasn't ruthless. As Yiping left, the demon king revealed a cruel nature and vowed to use other means for revenge. Night fell over the layered silent forest mountain range. Yiping rode on without progressing, noticing a red-eyed monkey trailing him. Irritated, Yiping dismounted and stopped. He glared and snapped, asking why the monkey was still following him. The monkey hurriedly explained it only wanted to befriend a rare human. Yiping was speechless when the monkey suddenly blushed. The monkey, embarrassed, admitted it loved human customs and wanted to transform to go out, so it traded a spirit stone. Yiping frowned, at a loss how to react to this strange demon. Yiping shivered and walked away, politely refusing and telling it not to follow, but the monkey clung to his leg and pleaded, claiming all human men like that thing, provoking Yiping to scold it for lacking ambition. The monkey secretly smiled slyly, knowing it was time to shift to its true purpose. The monkey pointed to a distant column of green light and asked Yiping, who nonchalantly replied he'd seen it since arriving. The monkey snapped in irritation, asserting that the light signaled the appearance of a ginseng spirit. Yiping frowned, thinking how oddly coincidental this was. The two proceeded toward the place where the ginseng spirit was shrouded in green light shooting into the sky. The pair hid and watched. The monkey insisted it was a ginseng spirit, but Yiping doubted it since no demon king had appeared for such a great omen. The monkey confidently explained each ginseng spirit has special powers, and perhaps that power made the plant detectable only to the two of them. Yiping stayed skeptical, suspecting the monkey had designs, but it quickly protested and recounted how it once obtained a ginseng spirit using its stealth ability. Yiping smiled, agreed to cooperate, and promised to split the yield if successful. The monkey reluctantly agreed, complaining aloud but secretly cursing Yiping for being too clever. The monkey strode straight into the green barrier surrounding the ginseng spirit. The monkey's form vanished, surprising Yiping at how fast it disappeared. While Yiping was still confused, the monkey had stealthily hidden behind another tree trunk. The monkey grinned smugly, boasting it knew how to burrow underground. Yiping looked around in bewilderment, suspecting the monkey had gotten into trouble. The monkey hid behind a rock, plotting, believing Yiping's greed would make him step into the ginseng spirit's barrier. With its mind-manipulating power, it silently asserted the mind power would amplify one's deepest fears, making survival inside unlikely for anyone. Yiping frowned and stopped because he couldn't see the monkey. Yiping pretended to give up to avoid risk, leaving the monkey stunned and secretly calling him too unambitious. The monkey watched angrily, realizing its entire plan and dreams of spending the spoils were about to collapse. Suddenly a transmitted voice echoed in his head, urging Yiping to enter and try his luck, causing him to involuntarily pause. Yiping was stunned to recognize the familiar voice and blurted out, asking if it was his senior brother.